Introduction to Wappin Wharf, a Frightful Comedy of Pirates by Charles S. Brooks. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dramatis Personae.
The Duke. Read by Son of the Exiles.
Patch-Eye, read by Laurie Wilson.
The Captain, read by Leanne
YauRed Joe, read by Tomas
Darlin, read by T.J. Burns.
Betsy, read by Devorah AllenOld
Meg is read by Linda Fitek.
Sailor Captain, read by alanmapstoneStage.
Introduction, read by Todd.
Stage directions, read by Sonia.
Prologue. Our scene is the wind-swept coast of Devon. By day there is a wide stretch of ocean far below, and the abutments of our stage arise from a dizzy cliff. The time is remote, and ships of forgotten build stand out from Bristol in full sail for the mines of India. But we must be loose and free of precise date, lest our plot be shamed by broken fact. 1,000 years are but as yesterday. We make but a general gesture to the dim spaces of the past. The village of Clovelly climbs in a single street, a staircase really, and it is fagged and out of breath half-way. But far above, on a stormy crag, clinging by its toes, there stands a pirate's hut. To this topmost ledge fishwives sometimes scramble by day, but when a wind shall search the crannies of the night, then no villager would dare to climb so high. You will seek to-day in vain the pirate's cabin. Since the adventure of our play, 1,000 tempests have snarled across these rocks. You must convince your reason that these pinnacles of yesteryear, toppled down by storm, lie buried in the sea. We had hoped that our drama's scene might lie on a pirate ship at sea. We had wished for a swaying mast, full set with canvas, a typhoon to smother our stage in wind. We had hoped to walk a victim off the plank, with the sea roaring in the wings. But our plot deals stubbornly with us. Alas, our pirates grow old and stiff. They have retired, as we say, from active practice, and live in easy luxury on shore. Yet we shall see that their villainy still thrives. How shall we select a name for our frightful play? There is a wharf in London that is known as Wapping. In these days that we call the present, it is sunk to common use, and its rotten timbers are piled with honest, unromantic merchandise. But once a gibbet stood on Wapping Wharf, and pirates were hanged upon it. It was the first convenient harbourage for inbound ships to dispose of this dirty deep-sea cargo. So it was the sombre motive of a pirate's life, his moment of reflection after he had slit his victim's throat. To-night, although your beards grow long and time has marked its net of wrinkles, to-night the years spin backwards. Only the young in heart will catch the slender meaning of our play. We are too quick to think that childhood passes with the years, that its fine fancy is blunted with the practice of the world. Too long have we been taught that the clouds of glory fade in the common day. If a man permits, a child keeps house within his heart. Our prologue outstays its time. Already the captain of our pirates puts on his hook. The evil Duke limps for practice on his wooden leg. Presently our curtain will rise. We shall see the pirate's cabin, with the lighthouse in the distance, Flint's lantern and the ladder to the sleeping loft. We shall hear a storm unparalleled, thunder, lightning, and the rush of wind, if it can be managed. Then our candles burn to socket. Our pasteboard cabin grows dark. The blustering ocean, the dizzy cliffs of Devon melt like an unsubstantial pageant. Once again, despite the sign-post of the years, we have run on the laughing avenues of childhood. By way of explanation. Several weeks ago, an actor-manager requested me to try my hand at a play for the winter season. The offer was unexpected. "My dear sir," I said, "I am immensely flattered, but I have never written a play." Then I hastened to ask, "What kind of play?" for fear the offer might be withdrawn. He replied with sureness and decision. "I want a play," he said, "with lots of pirates, and no poetry." He stressed this with an emphatic gesture. "And at least one shooting," he added. It was a slim prescription. He left me to brood upon the matter. The proposal was too flattering to be rejected out of hand. After a furious week upon a plot and dialogue, I was given an opportunity to display my wares. The manager himself met me in the hallway. "Is there a shooting?" he asked, with what seemed almost a suppressed excitement. I was able to satisfy him, and he led me to his inner office, where he pointed out an easy chair. The room was pleasantly furnished with bookshelves to the ceiling. Evidently his former ventures had been prosperous, and already I imagined myself come to fortune as his partner. While I fumbled with embarrassment at my papers, for I dreaded his severe opinion, he himself fetched a basket of coal for a fire that burned briskly on the hearth. Then he sat rigidly at attention. It now appeared that he had summoned to our conference several of his associates, the subordinates merely of his ventures, his manager of finance, with a sharp eye for a business flaw, his costumer and designer, and another person who is his reader and adviser, and, in emergency, fills and mends any sudden gap that shows itself. My notion of theatrical managers has been that they are a cold and distant race, the more sullen cousin of an editor. Is it not considered that on the reading of a play they sit with fallen chin, and that they chill an author to reduce his royalty? It is not, saith the buyer. I am told that even the best plays are hawked with disregard from theatre to theatre until the hungry author is out at elbow. They get less civility than greets a mean commodity. Worthless mining shares and shoddy gilt editions do not kick their heels with such disregard in the outer office. Popcorn and apple, Armenian laces even, beg a quicker audience. But none of this usual brusqueness appeared. Rather, he showed an agreeable enthusiasm as we proceeded, even an unrestraint, which, I must confess, at times somewhat marred his repose and dignity. Manifestly it was not his intention to depreciate my wares. He exchanged frank glances of approval with his subordinates, with his costumer especially, with whom his relation seems the closest. In the first act of my play, when it becomes apparent that one of my pirates goes stumping on a timber leg, his eye flashed; and when it was disclosed that the captain wears a hook instead of a hand, he forgot his professional restraint and cried out his satisfaction. He was soon wrapped in thought by the mysterious behaviour of the fortune-teller, and he said if she were short and stout he had the very actress in his mind. But it was in the second act that he threw caution to the winds. As you will know presently, Red Joe, one of my pirates, seizes his trusty gun, and, taking breathless aim, shoots. But I must not expose my plot. At this exciting moment, which is quite the climax of my play, Belasco, or any of his kind, would have squinted for a flaw. He would have tilted his wary nose upon the ceiling, and told me that my plot was humbug. What sailor man would mistake a lantern for a lighthouse? Nor were there lighthouses in the days of the buccaneers. He would have scuttled my play in dock, and grinned at the rising bubbles. Mark the difference. My manager, ignoring these inconsequential errors, burst from his chair (this is amazing) and turned a reckless somersault between the table and the fire. His costumer, who knows best how his eccentricity runs to riot, checked him for this and sent him to his chair. He sobered for a minute, and the play went on. Presently, however, when the enraged pirates gathered to wreak vengeance on their victim, I saw how deeply he was moved. His exultant eye sought the bookshelves, and I fancied that he was in meditation whether he might be allowed a handstand with his heels waving against the ceiling. His excited fingers obviously were searching for a dagger in his boot. You may conceive my pleasure. If his cold and practised judgment could be so stirred, might I not hope that the phlegmatic Pitt in shiny shirt-fronts would rise and shout his approval at our opening? And to what reckless license might not the gallery yield? I fancied a burst of somersaults in the upper gloom, and tremendous handsprings, both men and women, down the sharp-pitched aisle. It would be shocking, this giddy flash of lingerie, except that our broader times now give it countenance. Peeping Tom, late of Coventry, in these more generous days need no longer sit like a sneak in his private shutter. He has only to travel to the beach where 100 Godivas crowd the sands. I saw myself on the great occasion of our opening night, bowing in white tie from the forward box. Our conference was successful. When the reading of the play was finished, and the wicked pirate stood in the shadow of the gibbet, he thanked me, and excused himself from further attendance by reason of a prior engagement. Under the stress of selection for his theatre he cannot sleep at night, and his costumer wisely packs him off early to his bed. She whispers to me, however, that although he had hopes for a storm at sea and a hanging at the end, his decision, nevertheless, is cast in my favour for a quick production, whenever a worthy company can be assembled. But we have gone still further towards our opening. Our manager has already whittled a dozen daggers, and they lie somewhere on a shelf, awaiting a coat of silver paint. On the tip of each he has bargained for a spot of red. Furthermore, he owns a pistol, a harmless, devicerated thing, and he pops it daily at any rogue that may be lurking on the cellar stairs. All pirates wear pigtails. Pirates, that is, of the upper crust. The Kidds and Flints and Morgans. And at first this was a knotty problem. But he obtained a number of old stockings. Stockings, of course, beyond the skill of that versatile person who mends the gaps. And he has wound them on wires, curling them upward at the end and tying them with bits of ribbon. The pirate captain is allowed an extra inch of pigtail to exalt him above his fellows. When he first adjusted this pigtail on himself, his costumer cried out that he looked like a Chinaman. This was downright stupidity, and was hardly worthy of her perception. But ladies cannot be expected to recognize a pirate so instinctively as we rougher men. The stocking, however, was clipped to half its length, and now he is every inch a buccaneer. As to the pirate's hook, he is resourcefulness itself. These things are secrets of the craft, but I may hint that there is a very suitable hook in a butcher shop round the corner. Surely the butcher, warmed to generosity by the family patronage, would lend it for the great performance. I have no doubt but that the manager, from this time forward, will beg all errands in his direction, and that his smile will thaw the friendly butcher to his purpose. Certainly 2 legs of lamb, if whispered that the drama is at stake, will consent to hang for one tremendous day upon a single hook. Our hook is to be screwed into a block of wood, and there is something about knuckles and a cord around the wrist and a long sleeve to cover up the joining. Anyway, the problem has been met. In the furnace room he has found a heavy sheet of tin for the thunderstorm, and I have suggested that he dig in a nearby gravel pit for a basket of rain to hurl against the pirate's window. But hard beans, he says, are better, and he has won the cook's consent. For the slow monotone of water dripping from the roof in our second act, a single bean, he tells me, dropped gently in a pan, is a baffling counterfeit. The lightning seems not to bother him, for he owns a pocket flashlight, but the mighty wind that comes brawling from the ocean was at first a sticker. The vacuum cleaner popped into his head, but was put aside. The fireplace bellows were too feeble for any wind that had grown a beard. His manager of finance, however, laid aside his book one night, a weary tract upon the law, and displayed an ability to moan and whistle through his teeth. The very casement rattled in the blast. He has agreed to sit in the winds and loose a sufficient storm upon a given signal. Our stage is cramped. 3 strides stretch from side to side. Can this cockpit, you ask, hold the vasty fields of France? It is not, of course, the vasty fields of France that we are trying to hold, but we do lack space for the kind of riot the manager has in mind in the final scene. He wants nothing girlish. Sabres and pistols are his demand, a knife between the teeth, and more yelling than I could possibly put down in print. A bench must be upset, the beer cask overturned, a jug of Darlin's grog spilled, and 1 stool, at least, must be smashed, preferably on the captain's head, who must, however, be consulted. Patch-Eye and the Duke are not the kind of pirates that lie down and whine for mercy at a single punch. At first our manager was baffled how the pirates were to ascend a ladder to their sleeping loft. They had no place to go. They would crack their ugly heads upon the ceiling. The costumer was positive, parsimony, that a hole, even a little hole, should not be cut in the plaster overhead for their disappearance. If the chandelier had been an honest piece of metal, they might have perched on it until the act ran out. Or perhaps the candles could be extinguished when their legs were still climbing visibly. At last the manager has contrived that a plank be laid across the top of 2 step-ladders, behind a drop so the audience cannot see. No reasonable pirate could refuse to squat upon the plank until the curtain fell. We are getting on. Our company has been selected. We need only a handful of actors, but the manager has enlisted the street. The dearest little girl has been chosen for Betsy, and each day she practises her lullaby at the piano with uncertain, questing finger. A gentle rowdy of 12 will speak the Duke's blood-curdling lines. I understand that 2 quarrelsome pirates have nearly come to blows which shall act the captain. The hero, Red Joe, will be played by the manager himself, for it is he who owns the pistol. Is not the boy who has the baseball the captain of his 9? I owe an apology to all the mothers of our cast, for the rough language of my lines outweighs their gentler home instruction. Whenever several of our actors meet there is used the vile language of the sea. By the bones of my 10 fingers has replaced the anemic oaths of childhood. One little girl has been told she cries as easily as a crocodile. Another little girl was heard to say she would slit her sister's wisdom. A slip, no doubt, for wizen. And blast my lamps, and sink my timbers, are rolled profanely on the tongue. In every attic on the street a raffish craft flies the skull and crossbones, and roves the Spanish Main on rainy afternoons. Innocent victims, girls chiefly, who will tattle unless a horrid threat is laid upon them, are forced, blindfolded, to walk the plank. If the wind blows, scratching the trees against the roof, it is, by their desire, a tempest whirling their stout ship upon the rocks. What ho! We split! Mysterious chalkings mark the cellar stairs, and hint of treasure buried in the coal-hole. At every mirror pirates practise their cruel faces. And now the daggers are complete, and their tip of blood has been squeezed from its twisted tube. Chests and neighbors have been rummaged for outlandish costumes. From the kindling pile a predestined stick has become the timber leg of the wicked Duke. The butcher's hook has yielded to persuasion. Presently rehearsals will begin. I have been reading lately, and have come on a sentence with which I am in disagreement. I shall not tell the name of the book, mere moolishness, but I hope you know it or can guess. It is a tale of children, and of a runaway perambulator, and of folk who never quite grew up, with just a flick of inquiry, a slightest gesture now and then, towards precious rascals like our Patch-Eye and the Duke. Its author stands, in my opinion, a better chance of our lasting memory than any writer living. If you have read this book, you have known in its author a man who is himself a child, one from whom the years have never taken toll, and if you have lingered from page to page, you know what humor is, and love, and gentleness. I think that children must have clambered on his familiar knee, and that he learned his plot from their trustful eyes. Someone has been reading my very copy of this book, for it is marked with pencil, and whole chapters have been thumbed. I would like to know who this reader is. A woman, beyond a doubt, who has dug in this fashion to the author's heart. But the book is from a lending library. She is only a number pasted inside the cover, a date that warns her against a fine. Her pencil has marked the words to a richer cadence. I'd like to think that she has children of her own, and that she read the book at twilight in the nursery, and that its mirth was shared from bed to bed. But the pathetic parts she did not read aloud, fearing to see tears in her children's eyes. Before her own at times there must have floated a mist. She is a gracious creature, I am sure, with a gentleness that only a mother knows who sits with drowsy children. And now that it is my turn to read the book, for so does fancy urge me, I hear her voice and the echo of her children's laughter among the pages. It is a book about a great many things, about David and about a sausage machine, about a little dog which was supposed to have been caught up by mistake. But when the handle was reversed out he came, whole and complete except that his bark was missing. A sausage still stuck to his tail, which presently he ate, and it proved to be his bark, for at the last bite of sausage his bark returned, and David took his salty handkerchief from his eyes and laughed. There is a chapter on growing old, marked in pencil, a subject which the author of this book knew nothing about, never having grown old himself. And there is another chapter about a spinster, also marked. This chapter sings with exquisite melody, but breaks once to a sob for a love that has been lost. But the book is chiefly about children. There is one particular sentence in this book with which I am not in agreement. down from the laughing avenues of childhood, where memory tells us we run but once. I cannot believe that. I cannot believe we run but once. In the heart of the man who wrote the book there lives a child, and a child dwells in the heart of the woman of the lending library. We are too ready to believe that childhood passes with the years, that its fine imagination is blunted with the hard practice of the world. Too long have we been taught that the clouds of glory fade in the common day, that the lofty castles of the morning perish in the noonday sun. The magic vista is golden to the coming of the twilight, and the sunset builds a gaudy tower that outtops the dawn. If a man permits, a child keeps house within his heart to the very end. And therefore, as I think of those whittled daggers with their spot of blood, of that popping pistol, of the captain's horrid hook, of the black craft plying the skull and crossbones in the attic, I know, despite appearance, that I am young myself. I snap my fingers at the clock. It ticks merely for its own amusement. I proclaim the calendar is false. The sun rises and sets, but makes no chilling notch upon the heart. Once again, despite the weary signpost of the years, I run on the laughing avenues of childhood. My preface outstays its time. Even as I write, our audience has gathered. Limber folk in front squat on the floor. Bearded folk behind perch on chairs as on a balcony. Already, behind the scenes, the captain of the pirates has assumed his hook and villainous attire. Patch-Eye mumbles his lines against a loss of memory. Paint has daubed him to a rascal. The evil Duke limps for practice on his timber leg. Presently our curtain will rise. We shall see the pirate cabin, with the lighthouse blinking in the distance, the parrot, Flint's lantern, and the ladder to the sleeping loft. We shall hear a storm unparalleled, like a tempest from the ocean, hissed through the teeth. We shall see the pirates in tattered costume, and in pigtails made of stockings. And now, to bring this tedious explanation to a close, permit me to hush our orchestra for a final word. I have a most important announcement. It is the sum and essence of all these pages. This play of pirates, doctored somewhat with fiercer oaths and lengthened for older actors, this play, and my other play of beggars, I dedicate with my love to John Abram Flory, who, as Red Joe, was the most frightful pirate of them all. On choosing a title. I find difficulty in selecting a name for my pirate play. Children seem so easy in comparison. John, or Gretchen, or Gwendolen for parents of romantic taste. Gwendolen I myself dislike, and I have thought I would give it to a cow if ever I owned a farm. But this is prejudice. To name a child, I repeat, one needs only to run his finger down the column of his acquaintance, or think which aunt will have the looser purse strings in her will. An unhappy choice, after all, is rare. Here and there a chocolate Pearl, or a dusky crinkle-headed Blanche escapes our logic. But who can think of a sullen Nancy? Its very sound, tossed about the nursery, would brighten a maiden even if she were peevish at the start. I once knew an excellent couple of the name of Bottom, who chose Ruby as their offspring, but I have no doubt that the infelicity was altered at the font. The fact is that most of our names grow in time to fit our figure and our character. Margaret and Helen sound thin or fat, agreeable or dull, as our friends and neighbors rise before us, and any newcomer to our affection quickly erases the aspect of its former ugly tenant. I confess that till lately a certain name brought to my fancy a bouncing, red-armed creature, but that by a change of lease upon our street it has acquired an alien grace and beauty. Perhaps a scrawny neighbor by the name of Falstaff might remain inconsequent, but I am sure that if a lady called Messalina moved in next door and were of charming manner, a month would blur the bad suggestion of her name, which presently, if our gardens ran together, would come to sound sweetly in my ears. But a play, more than a child or neighbor, is offered for a sudden judgment, to sink or swim upon a first impression, and its christening is an especial peril. I have fretted for a month to find a title for my comedy. My first choice was A Frightful Play of Pirates. In the word frightful lay the double meaning that I wanted. It held up my hands, as it were, for mercy. It is an old device. Did not Keats, when a novice in his art, attempt by a modest preface to disarm the critics of his Endymion? "It is just," he wrote, "that this youngster should die away." Yet my title was too long. I could not hope, if my comedy reached the boards, that a manager could afford such a long display of electric lights above the door. It would require more than a barrel of lamps. The Pirates of Clovelly was not bad, except for length, but it was too obviously stolen from Gilbert's opera. I could feel my guilty fingers in his pocket. "S'death" was suggested, but it was too flippant, too farcical. "S'blood," though effective in red lights, made the same objection. The Spittin' Devil, named for our pirate ship, lacked refinement. Certainly no lady in silk and lace would admit acquaintance with so gross a personage. Darlin was offered to me, the name of the old lady with one tooth who cooks and mixes the grog for my sailormen. And I still think that with better spelling it would be an excellent title for musical comedy. But it was not for a pirate play. Its anemia would soften the vigor of my lines. One could as well call the tale of Bluebeard by the name of his casual cook. Then Clovelly seemed enough. At the very least, if my publisher were energetic, it ensured a brisk sale of the printed play among the American tourists on the Devon coast who travelled by boat or charabanc to this ancient fishing village where we set our plot. For even a trivial book sells to trippers if its story is laid round the corner. Would it not be pleasant, I thought, when I visit the place again, to see them thumbing me as they waited for the steamer, to see a whole window of myself placed in equal prominence with picture postcards? When I registered at the inn alongside the wharf, I might not hope that the landlady would recognize my name, and give me, as an honoured guest, a front room that looks upon the ocean? Perhaps, as I had my tea and clotted cream on the village staircase, I might mention casually to a pretty tourist that I was the author of the book that protruded from her handbag, and fetch my dishes to her table. It is so seldom that an obscure author catches anyone flagrante delicto in his book. Will no one ever read a book of mine in the subway that I may tap him on the shoulder? Do travellers never put me in their grips? Must everyone read in public the latest novel and reserve all plays and essays for their solitary hours? At the club I shuffle to the top any periodical that contains my name, but the crowded noon buries me deep again. At best, maybe, in a lending library, I see a date stamped inside my cover, but, although I linger near the shelf, no one comes to draw me down. I think that hunters must look with equal hunger on the bear's tread. It is here! It is there! But the cunning creature has escaped. Blackmore's present ghost frequents the shadowy church at Porlock where he married Lorna and John Ridd, or roams the Valley of the Rocks to see the studious pilgrims at his pages. Stevenson haunts the gloomy inlet where the Admiral Benbow stood, and where old Pew came tapping in the night. In the flesh I shall join their revels as an equal comrade. Clovelly, however, although its lilt was pleasant to the ear, was an insufficient title. Skull and Crossbones was too obvious, and my next choice was The Gibbet. But there was the disadvantage of scaring the timid. Old ladies would pass me by. It would check the sale of tickets. My nephew, who is 14 and not at all timid, was stout in his defence. He pronounces it as if the G were the hard kind that starts off gurgle. Gibbet. He asked me if I had a hanging in the piece. If so, he knew how the business could be managed without chance of accident, an extra rope fastened to the belt behind. I told him that it was none of his business how I ended up the pirates. I would hang them, or not, as I saw fit. He would have to pay his quarter like everyone else, and sit it through. He suggested From Dishpan to Matrimony, obviously a jest. The sly rogue laughs at me. I must confess, however, that he has given me some of my best lines. Villainies afoot, for example, and sink me stern up. His peaceful school breeds a wealth of pungent English. I was in despair. Revenge! Would that have done? I see a maddened father stand, with smoking revolver, above the body of a silky whiskered villain. Doris! The panting parent cries, the butcher boy knows all, and wants you for his bride. And down comes the happy curtain on the lovers. The Wreckers belongs to Stevenson. The Pirate's Nest. It is too ornithological. The Natural History Museum might buy a copy, and think I had cheated them. And then Channel Lights. It sends us sharply to the days of the older melodrama, days when we exchanged a 10-cent piece for a gallery seat and hissed the villain. Do you recall the breathless moment when the heroine implored the villain to give her back her stolen child? For answer the cruel fellow tied the darling to the buzz-saw. Or that darker scene when he tossed the lady to the black waters of the Thames with the splash of a dipper up behind. Hurry, Master Hero! Your horse's hoofs clatter in the wings. Gallop, Dobbin! A precious life depends upon your speed. Our dangerous plot hangs by a single thread. It is quite a task to find a sufficient title. I have wavered for a month. But now my efforts seem rewarded. There is a wharf in London below the Tower, not far from the India Docks. It is now sunk to common week-day uses, and I suppose its rotten timbers are piled with honest, unromantic merchandise. But once pirates were hanged there. It was the first convenient place for inbound ships to dispose of this dirty deep-sea cargo. Doubtless hereabout the lanes and building-tops were crowded with an idle throng as on a holiday, and wearies to the bank-side and the play paused with suspended oar for a sight of the happy festival. Did Hamlet wait upon this ghastly prologue? Shakespeare himself, unplayed script in hand, mused how tragedy and farce go hand in hand. In those golden days with which our comedy concerns itself, a gibbet stood on Wappin Wharf, and pirates stepped off the fatal cart to a hangman's jest. We may hear the shouts of the prentice lads echoing across the centuries. I cannot hope that many persons, except dusty scholars, will know of the district's ancient ill repute, yet Wappin Wharf figures often in my dialogue as the sombre motif of a pirate's life. It conveys to the plot a sense of mystery. It needs but a handful of electric lamps. If no one offers me a better title, I shall let it stand.
End of introduction. Act 1 of Wappin Wharf, a frightful comedy of pirates, by Charles S. Brooks. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Wappin Wharf, a frightful comedy of pirates. Act 1. Our scene is the wind-swept coast of Devon. By day there is a wide stretch of ocean far below. The time is remote, and doubtless great ships of forgotten build stand out from Bristol in full sail for western shores. Their white canvas winks in the morning sun as if their purpose were a jest. They seek a northwest passage and the golden mines of India. But we must be loose and free of date, lest our plot be shamed by broken fact. 1,000 years are but as yesterday. We shall make no more than a general gesture toward the wide spaces of the past. The village of Clovelly climbs in a single street, a staircase really, from the shore to the top of the cliff, and is fagged and out of breath halfway. But on a still dizzier crag, storm-blown, clinging by its toes, there stands the pirate's cabin. To this topmost ledge fishwives sometimes scramble by day to seek a belated sail against Lundy's Isle. But after twilight a night wind searches the crannies of the rock and whines to the moon of its barren quest, and then no villager, I think, chooses to walk in that direction. I have visited Clovelly, and have kicked a sodden donkey from the wharf to the top of the street, past the shops of Devon cream and picture postal cards, but have sought in vain the pirate's cabin. Since our far-off adventure of tonight, 10,000 tempests have snarled across these giddy cliffs, and we must convince our reason that these highest crags, where we pitch our plot, have long since been toppled in a storm. Where yonder wave lathers the shaggy headland, as if Neptune had turned barber, we must fancy that the pinnacles of yesteryear lie buried in the sea. We had hoped for a play upon the sea, with a tall mast rocking from wing to wing, and the tempest roaring at the rail. Alas, our pirates grow old and stiff. They have retired, as we say, from active practice, and live in idle luxury on shore. Yet we shall see that their villainy still thrives. Our scene is their cabin on the cliff. It is a rough stone building, with peeling plaster and slates that by day are green with moss. But it is night, and the wind is whistling its rowdy companions from the sea. Until the morning they will play at leap-frog from cliff to cliff. Far below is the village of Clovelly, snug with fire and candles. We enter the cabin without knocking, like neighbours through a garden, and poke about a bit before our hosts appear. A door, forward at the right, leads to the kitchen. Backstage, also at the right, a ladder rises to a sleeping loft. On the left wall are a chimney and fireplace with a crane and pot for heating grog, and smoky timbers above to mark the frequent thirst. On a great beam overhead are bags of clinking loot and shining brasses from wrecked ships. Peppers hang to dry before the fire, and the lighted ship's lantern swings from a hook. At the rear of the cabin, to the left, a row of mullioned windows looks at sea and cliffs in a flash of lightning. Below is a seaman's chest. Above, on the broken plaster, is scrawled the ship. In the middle, at the rear, there is a clock with hanging pendulum and weights. A gun of antique pattern leans beside the clock. To the right the cabin is recessed, with a door right-angled in the jog, and other windows looking on the sea. A parrot sits on its perch with curbed profanity. The gaudy creature is best if stuffed, for its noisy tongue would drown our dialogue. Like Hamlet's player, it would speak beyond its lines, and raise a quantity of barren laughter. Our furniture is a table and 3 stools, and a tall-backed chair beside the hearth. On the table a candle burns, bespattered with tallow. The cabin glows with firelight. At the lifting of the curtain there is thunder and lightning and a rush of wind, if it can be managed. 2 pirates are discovered, drinking at the table. By the smack of their lips it is excellent grog. One of them, Patch-Eye, has lost an eye, and he wears a black patch. His hair curls up in a pigtail, like any sailor before Nelson. It looks as stiff as a hook, and he might almost be lifted by it and hung on a peg. But all of our pirates wear pigtails, except one, Red Joe. The other pirate at the table is called the Duke, for no apparent reason, as he is a shabby rogue. We must not run our finger down the peerage in hope of finding him, or think that he owns a palace on the Strand. He has only 1 leg, with a timber below the knee. He wears a long cloak, so that the actor's rusticated leg can be folded out of sight. The Duke has a great red nose, grog and rum and that sort of thing. His whiskers are the bush that marks the merry drinking place. Patch-Eye is melancholy, almost sentimental at times. He would stab a man, but grieve upon a sparrow. At heart we fear he is a coward, and stupid. The Duke, on the contrary, is shrewd, and he does a lot of thinking. He has heavy eyebrows. He is the kind of thinker that you just know that he is thinking. Both pirates are very cruel, and profane, but we must be careful. And now we hush the melancholy fiddlers. If this comedy can stir the croaking bass viol to any show of mirth, our work tops Falstaff. Glum folk with beards had best withdraw. Only the young in heart will catch the slender meaning of our play. Let's light the candles and draw the curtain.
Darlin', darlin'.
He lolls back in his chair and stretches out his legs for comfort.
Darlin'.
At this a dirty old woman with 1 tooth appears from the kitchen. She is called Darlin just for fun, as she is not at all kissable. A sprig of mistletoe, even in the Christmas season, would beckon vainly.
Me friend the Duke is thirsty. Will you fill the cups? Hurry, old dear, and squeeze in just a little bit of lemon. It sets the stomach.
You sets your stomach like it were hen's eggs. Always coddling it.
She stirs and tastes the pot of grog, and hoists her wrinkled stockings.
There's no one like darlin' for mixin' grog.
For that kind word I'm loving you.
She looks at him with admiration.
Ain't he a figure of a man? Venus was nothing, just nothing at all.
The grog beats off the melancholy. As soon as me pipes go dry, I gets homesick for the ocean. Here we be, Duke thrown up at last to rot like driftwood on the shore. No more sailing off to Trinidad, no tacking round the Hebrides, we as ships as has sprung a leak. It was happy days when we sailed off old Flint on the Spanish Main.
Happy days, Patch.
They drink.
Aye, the blessed dear old roaring hulk. No better private ever lived than Flint, smart with his cutlass, quick at the trigger. Grog, a slopping pellet was just a sip.
I used to tell him that his leg was holler.
He was a vat, was Flint, just a swishing keg.
Grog just sizzled and disappeared, like when you drops it on a red-hot sea coal.
For 20 year or more, me and you has seen old Flint march his victims off the plank.
Arr, step lively, he'd say. Doesn't you hear Davy calling to you? There was never a sail a man ever sat in the port light at Wappin Wharf could drink with Flint.
Wappin Wharf and gibbets is nothing to talk about. Funerals even is cheerfuller.
Here's his parrot.
She used to cuss soft and gentle to herself, happy all the day. She ain't spoke since Flint was took, pecking at your fingers and brooding.
There's his old clock,
as hung in the cabin of old Spittin' Devil,
with the pendulum getting tangled in a storm. An hell of a clock for a bouncing ship.
She was ticking peaceful the day Flint was hanged, but she stopped. Does you remember it? The very minute they pushed him off the ladder.
She ain't ticked since.
It makes you stitious, and she won't never run again. That's what Flint allers said, till to his death's revenged.
He told us never to wind her, says she'd start hisself with no winding when the right time came.
If I was to look up and see that pendulum swinging, horrors, yellow elephants would be nothing.
I'd give a month of grog just to hear the old dear ticking, and to know that Flint was resting easy in his rotten coffin, swapping stories with the pretty angels.
I love Flint like a brother.
He is quite sentimental about this.
It was him knocked this out,
pointing to his missing eye.
But it was just in the way of business. We differed a little in the loot. He was very persuasive, was old Flint.
You talks like a woman. He loves you to cuff him. Them was happy days, Patch.
Bless me gig, what's left, Duke, but me and you has seen a heap of sights. I suppose I've drowned myself 100 men. It's comfortin' when you're lays awake at night. I feels I ain't wasted myself. I've used my gifts. I ain't been a foolish virgin, and put me shining talent inside a bushel. But me and you is driftwood now, Duke.
Aye, but it's no use sniffling about it, old crocodile. Darlin is certainly handy at mixing grog, and we've a right smart cabin with winders on the sea. Since I stuffed your old shirt in the roof, it hardly leaks.
My shirt. Next week is me week for changin'. How would you ha' done it? I'm a kinder particular dresser. I likes to wash now and then, if it ain't too often.
Darlin', me friend Patch is thirsty, and I drop meself.
The cups are filled.
You're a precious old lady, and I loves you.
You spoils me, Duke.
Lightning and a crash of thunder.
It's foul tonight on the ocean. How the wind blows. It be splittin' up outside. The channel's as roiled as a vampire when you scorns her. How she snorts.
The devil hisself is hissin' through his teeth.
There'll be sailormen tonight what's booked for Davy Jones's locker. I'm not kickin' much, for to be ashore, I rots peaceful.
Patch-Eye has opened the door to consult the night. It slams wide in the wind, and the gust blows out the candle.
Hey there, for'ard! Batten your hatch! You're blowin' the gizzard out of us!
He hobbles on Timberleg to the warm chair by the fire. Patch closes the door and sits. Darlin relights the candle.
Poor Flint, he was took on just such a night. Dropped into the port light for somethin' wet and warmin'. Just to kinder say good-bye. Ship all fitted out. He got 3 new sailormen, fine fellers as had been sentenced to be hanged for cuttin' purses, but had been let go, as they had reformed and wanted to be honest pirates.
I remembers the night, old sea nymph. It was rainin' to put out the fires of hell, with the little devil stokin' in the sinners. It's sinners' patch as is used for kindlers to keep the devils in an healthy sweat.
He was ter sail when the tide ran out. Lord-a-goody, how the tide runs down the Thames, as if it were homesick for the ocean.
But someone squealed.
Squealers is worse'n hissin' reptiles. They ketched Flint, and they strung him to a gibbet. Poor old dear! I never touches me Patch, but thinks of Flint.
This here life is snug and easy. We has retired from practice, like storekeepers does who has made a fortune. Ain't we settin' here in style and comfort, and just waitin' for the treasure ships to come to us? We gets the plums without chewin' at the dough. We blows out the lighthouse, and we sets our lanterns so as to fool 'em on the course, and when they smashes on the rocks, well, all we does is stuff our pokes with the treasure that washes up. I praise meself for fog and dirty weather. Now I lay me, says I, and will you send it thick and oozy?
I ain't disputin' yer.
He cheers up a bit.
And we robs landlubbers once in a while.
Now you're talkin', old sea lion. I'm tellin' you it were a good haul we made last night on Castle Crag.
Who's disputin' yer?
I'm tellin' you, silver candles and spoons. Never seen such a heap of spoons.
What's anyone want more'n 1 spoon for? Yer cleans it every bite again the tongue.
You disgusts me, Patch. You ain't no manners. For meself, I spears me food tidy on me knife.
The Duke sits looking at the seaman's chest at the rear of the cabin. He is deep in thought.
Now there's just one little thing I doesn't understand. I asks you.
He goes to the chest, opens it, and draws out a rich velvet garment. He holds it up.
What's the meanin' of this here loot we took at Castle Crag? I asks you. Ain't we been by that castle 100 times? The Earl, he don't wear clothes like this. None of the aristocracy does, 'cept when they struts on Piccadilly. I ask you, Patch, I asks you, who wears a thing like that?
He puts the garment around Patch's shoulders.
You looks like the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Patch with strut and gesture.
His grease takin' the air, pluckin' posies.
looking like a silly jackass.
You hurt me feelings, Duke.
The Duke folds the cloak and puts it back again in the chest. He sits at the table in meditation.
I doesn't like it, Patch. I doesn't understand it. And what I doesn't understand, I doesn't like.
What?
Them gay clothes. Who owned 'em, I asks you, afore we stole 'em?
Darlin, me friend the Duke is thirsty. You had better mix another pot. Our cups is low. You doesn't want to be a foolish virgin and get catched without no grog.
With this bit of slop what's left, I drinks to your shining lamps. Venus's flashing gigs.
I loves you, Duke.
She fills, mixes, and stirs the pot. She tastes it like a practiced housewife. Her apron is made of all work. It is towel, dust rag, mop, and handkerchief.
What does you make, old Cyclops, of the new recruit?
Red Joe?
Him.
He's a right smart pirate, I says. I never seen a feller as could shoot so straight.
I says so, but he's a wee bit knobby, kinda stiff in the nose.
Looks as if he knowed he was kinder good.
It's queer how he come to us, just sittin' on top his dory on the beach when we found him, and what he said about his ship goin' down. Blast me old stump, but it were queer.
Queer?
You said it, Patch. Queerer than mermaids. Did we ever see a stick o' that ship? I'm askin' you, Patch.
Ain't I listenin'?
Ain't I tellin' you? Nary a bit washed in. Did you ever know a wreck long here where nothin' washed in? Just nothin'? I'm askin' you.
You and me would starve if it happened regular.
It's what we lives by. Pickin's on the beach.
He's a right smart pirate, Red Joe. The captain, the most particular man I know, he took to him at once. He's a kinder good-looking feller.
Darlin, stirring at the pot.
He ain't got whiskers like the Duke.
She spits. Must I say it? She spits into the fire.
Queer that never a stick washed in.
No, I'm not denying your Duke. Where's Red Joe now? It's getting on. I'll just take a look for him.
He takes the lantern from its hook and stands at the open door.
It ain't blowing so hard. Old Borealis, I speaks poetical, ain't strainin' at his waistcoat buttons like he was.
Ignorance, I pities you. Borealis ain't wind, he's rainbows.
Patch-Eye goes into the night. The Duke sits to a greasy game of solitaire.
It's queer, I says. Nary a stick, just Red Joe on top his dory.
He sings abstractedly.
Bill Bones used to say on many a day, when taking a ship for its loot, that a blow on the head was quickest dead, and safest and best to boot. But a victim's end for meself I contend, there's 100 been killed by me. Is a walk, I'll be frank, on a slippery plank, and a splash in the roaring sea.
He turns and surveys the drawing above the windows. He cocks his head like a connoisseur, critically, with approval.
I'm the artist of that there masterpiece. The spittin' devil. I done it on a rainy mornin'. Genius is queer.
Then he sings again.
Old Pew had a jerk with a long-handed dirk. His choice was a jab in the dark.
He is engaged thus, fumbling with his cards, when Darlin, crossing from the fire, interrupts him.
Duke, will you have a nip of grog? It eases your pipes. You sounds as if you had crumbs in your gullet.
The Duke pushes forward his cup.
It's a lovely tune, and I wrote it myself.
He continues his song.
Old Pew had a jug with a long-handed dirk. His choice was a jab in the dark. And Morgan's crew twixt me and you considered a rope a lark. But a prettier end, I repeat and contend, and I've sailed on every sea, is a plunge off the side in the foaming tide. It tickles a sailor like me.
Duke, does you happen to have a wife?
Duke, deeply engaged.
Some tunes is hard, so I just makes 'em up as I goes along. Blackbeard had a knife which he stuck in his wife for nagging, says he to me.
Has your wife? A wife as might turn up, I mean.
Say it again, darling.
Most sailors has wives, of course, strewed here and there from Bristol to Guinea, just to make all ports cozy. So's you're going home to a happy family no matter where you steers.
It's comfortable, darling. I'll not deny it. When you heads to harbour to see a winking candle in a window on a hill, and knows that a faithful wife and a couple of little pirates is waiting to hug you.
I says so, Duke. I've been a wife myself, on and off, with husbands sailing in and out, kissing you and hoisting sail. Roundabout, I says, makes happy marriages. Has your wife, Duke, living, as you can remember?
You're a bold, forward creature. Are you proposing to me?
Something like a wink shows in the blush.
I blush for your bad manners, Duke. I'm a lady, and I waits patient for the happy question. I lets me beauty do the pleading. I was a flamin' roarer in me time. Lovers was nothing. Dozens. There was a sea captain once.
She smiles dreamily, then seems to cut her throat with her little finger.
Positive. Just 'cause we tiffed. And a stagecoach driver? I had to cool his passion with a rolling pin. He brewed himself into drink. Happy days.
She is lost for a moment in her glorious past, then blows her nose upon her apron and returns to us.
Duke, asking your pardon, I was noticing lately that you was casting your eyes on little Betsy.
As washes the dishes?
Her.
Go along.
And I thought you might be drawn to her.
Darling, I'm easy roiled.
You can have her, Duke, on one condition.
She's a pretty little girl.
You must set me up in a pub in Bristol, with brass beer poles.
I'll not deny I've given her a thought. Usual wives is nuisances, nagging at you for sixpences. But sometimes I does get lonesome on a wet night, when there's nothing to do. I need someone to hand me down me boots. Betsy'd make a kind of cosy wife. Could yer learn her to make grog?
Aye.
I might do worse than roast pig that crackles.
I could learn her.
I might do worser. I'd marry you, darling.
Dearie.
But you're getting on. Patch might marry you. He's only got one eye.
Patch?
I'll not deny I've been considerin' little Betsy. I was thinkin' about it this mornin' as I was cleanin' me boot. Wives cleans boots. I'm the sort of sailorman she would be sure to like.
And what about the pub?
Blast me stump, darling, I'll not forget you.
Does I get brass beer pools in the tap?
Everything shiny.
I'm loving ya.
Betsy would kinda jump at me. There's something tender about a young girl's first love cooing in your arms.
Easy, Duke.
I always was a favourite with the ladies. I think it's me whiskers.
Vast there, Duke. There's a shoal ahead. Red Joe's a right smart feller.
Red Joe?
Him. He sits and watches her.
What can she see in a young fella like that?
Women's queer folks. They're vicious vampires. Just you watch 'em together. Red Joe's snooping in on you.
You can blast me. He ain't got whiskers.
I'm telling you, Duke. If I was you, I'd tumble that Red Joe off a cliff. I'm hinting to you, Duke. Off a cliff. It's the pig. I clean forgot the pig. It's burning on the fire. Off a cliff. I'm hinting to you.
She runs to the kitchen.
Red Joe. Women's queer. Queerer than mermaids. A snooper. Just a 'prentice pirate. No whiskers. Nothing.
At this moment there is a stamping of feet outside, and Patch-Eye enters with Red Joe. If Red Joe were born a gentleman, we might expect silver buckles and a yellow feather to trail across his shoulder, for he bears a jaunty dignity. His is a careless grace, the swagger of a pleasant vagabond, a bravado that snaps its fingers at danger. His body has the quickness of a cat, his eye a flash of humour, kindly, unless necessity sharpens it. As poets were thick in those golden days, we suspect that the roar of the ocean sets rhymes jingling in his heart. He is, however, almost as shabby as the other pirates, although he wears no pigtail. His collar is turned up. He wrings the water from his hat. Patch-Eye throws himself on the seaman's chest and falls asleep at once. He snores an obligato to our scene. Just once an ugly dream disturbs him, and we must fancy that a gibbet has crossed the frightful shadow of his thoughts.
Evening, old sea serpent. Where's you been?
Up at the lighthouse. It's as murky as hell's back door.
See Petey?
I did. He was puttering with his light and meowing to his tabby cat.
We're a blessing to old Petey. I'm betting me stump he'd get lonesome up there, 'cept for us.
He points to the window to the right, where the lighthouse shows.
There's old Petey staring at the ocean. You ain't never seen a light at that other window, has you, Joe? We waits for a merchant man, which he knows has gold aboard. Then we just tips a hint to Petey, and he douses his light. Then we sets up our lantern, old Flint's lantern, outside on the rocks, just where she shows at t'other window. The ship sticks her nose agin the cliff. Smash!
At this point, after a few moments of convulsion, Patch-Eye falls off the chest. He sits up and rubs his eyes.
I dreamed of gibbets.
You're as lucky, old keg of rum. You doesn't dream of purple rhinoceroses. Go back to bed.
Then to Joe.
Smash, I says. On comes Petey again, and we just as innocent as babes in a crib. It was me own idea. Brains, young fellow. Just you wait, Joey, till you sees a light at the other window.
Betsy is heard singing in the kitchen. The Duke stops and listens. A dark thought runs through his head. His shrewd eye quests from the kitchen door to Joe.
Darlin', darlin',
She thrusts in her head.
where's Betsy?
She's washing dishes.
I'm wondering if she would lay off a bit from her jolly occupation and sing us a little song.
Betsy, I want you.
I never knowed you cared for music, Duke. Usually you goes outside. You're just booze.
I does usual, Patch. Tonight's particular. Red Joe ain't heard Betsy sing. Does you like music, Joe?
I like the roaring of the ocean. I like to hear the trees tossing in the wind.
Wind ain't music. You should hear Betsy. She's got a little song that makes you feel as good and peaceful as a whining parson.
Darlin beckoning at the kitchen door.
Betsy, stop slopping with the dishes.
Betsy enters. She is a pretty girl. Our guess at her age is... But it is better not to guess. We have in our own experience made several humiliating blunders. Let us say that Betsy is young enough to be a granddaughter. Plainly she is a pirate by accident, not inheritance, for she is clean and she wears a pretty dress. Duke, as he rises and makes a show of manners.
Betsy, you's welcome to the parlour. We wants Red Joe to hear you sing. That little song of yours.
He returns to the recess at the rear of the cabin, and covertly watches Joe. Patch-Eye is lost in heavenly meditation. Joe's attention is roused before the first stanza of the song is finished. By the third stanza, Betsy sings to him alone.
The north wind's cheeks are puffed with tunes it whistles across the sky. Its song is shrill and rough until the hour of twilight's nigh. Rest, my dear one, rest and dream, the winds on tiptoe keep. In the dusk of day they hum their lay, and weary children sleep. The waves since dawn roared on the rocks, they snarled at the ships on the deep. But at twilight hour they chain their power, and little children sleep. Rest, my dear one, rest and dream, the ships in a cradle swing, and sailormen blink and children sink to sleep as the wavelets sing. The sun at noon was red and hot, it stifled the east and west, but at evensong the shadows long have summoned the world to rest. Rest, my dear one, rest and dream, the sun runs off from the sky, but the stars, it's odd, while children nod, are tuned to a lullaby.
She sings slowly, to a measure that might rock a cradle. This can be managed, for I have tried it with a chair. Once Patch-Eye blows his nose to keep his emotions from exposure, but make him blow softly, sotto naso, shall we say, so as not to disturb the song. In Red Joe the song seems to have stirred a memory. At the end of each stanza Betsy pauses, as if she too dwelt in the past.
When I hears that song, I feel as if I were rockin' babies in a crib. Bless little pirates pullin' at their bottles, as well foller the sea some day.
He blows his sentimental nose. A slighter structure would burst in the explosion.
Your old nose sounds as if it were tootin' for a fog. You might be round in the Isle of Dogs on a murky night.
He goes to the door and stretches out his hand for raindrops.
Joe, you and me has to put oil in the lantern. Come on, old sweetheart. When you sees this lantern blinkin' at that there window, you will know that villaini's afoot.
He comes close to Darlin and whispers.
You said it, darlin', you said it. Red Joe's castin' his eye on Betsy, off a cliff. Tonight, now, if I gets a chance, off a cliff. Come on, Joey.
He goes outdoors with Red Joe, singing Betsy's song. The lullaby fades in the distance. Patch-Eye and Betsy are left together, for the roast pig again calls Darlin to the kitchen.
Will ye wait a bit, Betsy, asking your pardon, while I talks to you?
Of course, Patch.
I don't suppose, dearie, I'm the kind of pirate that sets you thinking of fiddles tuning up ner parsons. No, you says, ner cradles and leetle devils biting at their quarrel. I don't suppose you has a kind of a hankering and yearning. You never sets and listens to me coming. Oh, course not, you says, Betsy. If I talk out square, you'll not blab it all around the village, will you? They would point their fingers at me and giggle in their sleeves. I want to tell you something, a very tender nature. There's a leetle word as begins with L. L, I mean not tell. I wouldn't want you to think, Betsy, I'm cussin'. L is cussin'. The little word is what's ailing me. It's love, Betsy. It's me heart, smashed all to bits. Jesus, you ask, what done it? It's a pretty girl, I answer you, as has smashed it. Does you follow, Betsy? A pretty girl about your size, and with eyes the color of yourn. What does your say, Betsy? Your says nothing.
I never meant to, Patch. I'm sorry.
Course you are. Just as sorry as the careless feller as nudged Humpty Dumpty off the wall. But it didn't do no good. There he was, broke all to flinders. And all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't fix him. Humpty Dumpty is me, Betsy. Regularly all split up, fore and aft, rib and keel. I mopes for you all day, Betsy, and I mopes all night. Last night I didn't get her sleep, just fidgetin' till way past 11 o'clock, and I woke again at 7, asking myself if I loves you hopeless. You're as a lump of sugar, Betsy, as would sweeten old Patch's life. If we was married, I'd just tag round behind you and hand your things. And now you tells me there ain't no hope at all.
No hope at all, Patch.
Yesterday I was counting the potatoes in the pot, saying to myself, she loves me. She don't love me. But the last potato didn't love me, Betsy. There was just one too many potatoes in the pot. No, yer says, you couldn't love me. 'Cause why? 'Cause Patch is a shabby pirate with only one eye.
I am sorry, Patch.
She offers him her hand.
Bless little fingers as twines theirselves all round me heart. Patch, you says you're sorry. There ain't no hope at all. You nudges him off the wall, but you can't fix him. But I never heard that Humpty Dumpty did a lot of squealing when he bust. He took it like a pirate, and so does Patch. I doesn't so. If you will pardon me, Betsy, I'll leave you. Me feelings get lumpy in me throat. I'll take a wink of sleep in the loft.
He climbs the ladder, but turns at the top.
There was just one too many potatoes in the pot.
He disappears through the hole in the wall. Betsy arranges the mugs on the table, then stands listening. Presently there is a sound of footsteps. Red Joe enters at the rear.
I slipped the Duke in the dark. I came back to talk with you.
Then bluntly, but with kindness.
How old are you, my dear?
I don't know.
You don't know? How long have you lived here?
In this cabin? 3 years.
And where did you live before?
In the village, in Clovelly.
Did your parents live there?
Yes, I think so. I don't know. Old Nancy, they called her. She brought me up. But she died 3 years ago.
Who was old Nancy?
She did washing for the sailormen.
Was she good to you?
Oh, yes. I think, I do not know, that she was not my mother.
And Darlin?
Yes, she has been good to me. And the others, too. I seem to remember someone else. How long have you been a pirate?
A pirate? Years, it seems, my dear. But I am more used to a soldier's oaths. I have trailed a pike in the lowland wars. The roar of cannon, and siege and falling walls are gayer tunes than any ocean tempest. What is this that you remember, Betsy?
It is far off. Someone sang to me. It was not Nancy. When Nancy died, Darlin took me and brought me up. That was 3 years ago. But last year the captain and Duke and Patch-Eye came climbing up the rocks. They were sailormen, they said, who had lost a ship. And these cliffs with the sea pounding on the shore comforted them when they were lonely. So they stayed, and Darlin and I cook for them.
Do you remember who it was who sang to you?
No.
That song you just sang. Where did you learn it?
I have always known it. It makes me sad to sing it, for it sets me thinking of something that I have forgotten.
She stands at the window above the sea.
Some days I climb high on the cliffs, and I look upon the ocean. And I know that there is land beyond, where children play, but I see nothing but a rim of water. And sometimes the wind comes off the sea, and it brings me familiar, far-off voices. Voices I once knew. Voices I once knew. Fragments from a life I have forgotten. Why do you ask about my song?
Because I heard it once myself.
Betsy sits beside him at the table.
Where? Perhaps, if you will tell me, it will help me to remember.
I heard the song once when I was a lad, when I was taken on a visit.
Were your parents pirates?
It was a long journey, and all day we bumped upon the road, seeking an outlet from the tangled hills. Night overtook our weary horses, and blew out the flaming candles in the west. The shadows were a blanket on the sleeping world. Toward midnight I was aroused. We had come to the courtyard of a house, this house where I was taken on a visit.
Was it like this, Joe? A cabin on a cliff?
I remember how the moon peeped around the corner to see who came so late knocking on the door. I remember...
He stops abruptly.
Do you remember when you first came to live with Nancy?
I dreamed once. You will think me silly. Are there great stone steps somewhere, wider than this room, with marble women standing motionless, and walls with dizzy towers upon them?
Go on, Betsy.
In Clovelly there are naught but cabins pitched upon a hill, and ladders to a loft, and at the foot of the town a mole where boats put in. And I have listened to the songs of the fishermen as they wind their nets, and through the window of the tavern I have heard them singing at their rum, and sometimes I have been afraid. I have stuffed my ears and ran, but the ugly songs have followed me and scared me in the night. The shadows from the moon have reeled across the floor, like a tipsy sailor from the harbour light. Joe, are you really a man from the sea?
Why, Betsy?
The sea is never gentle. It never sleeps. I have stood listening at the window on breathless nights, but the ocean always slaps against the rocks. Even in a calm it moves and frets. Is it not said that the ghosts of evil men walk back and forth on the spot where their crimes are done? The ocean, perhaps, for its cruel wreckage, haunts these cliffs. It is doomed through all eternity with a lather of breaking waves to wash these rocks of blood, and the wind whistles to bury the cries of drowning men that plague the memory. Joe.
Yes, my dear?
You are the only one. Patch-Eye, Duke, and the Captain. You are the only one who is always gentle. And I have wondered if you could really be a pirate.
Me?
Then, with sudden change,
Me? General? The devil himself is my softer twin.
Don't! Don't!
What do you know of scuttled ships and rascals ripped in fight? Of the last bubbles that grin upon the surface when a dozen men have drowned?
Joe, for God's sake, don't!
Is it gentleness to plunge a dagger in a man and watch for his dying eye to glaze?
It is a lie! Tell me it is a lie!
My dear.
gently he touches her hand.
It is a lie.
We'll pretend it is a lie.
They sit for a moment without speaking.
How long, Joe, have you lived with us?
2 weeks, Betsy.
2 weeks? So short a time. From Monday to Monday, and then around again to Monday. It is so brief a space that a flower would scarcely droop and wither. And yet the day you came seems already long ago, and all the days before are of a different life. It was another Betsy, not myself, who lived in this cabin on a Sunday before a Monday.
It is so always, Betsy, when friends suddenly come to know each other. All other days sink to unreality like the memory of snow upon a day of August. We wonder how the flowering meadows were once a field of white. Our past selves, Betsy, walk apart from us, and, although we know their trick of attitude and the fashion of their clothes, they are not ourselves. For friendship, when it grips the heart, rewinds the fibres of our being. Do you remember, dear, how you ran fright when you first saw me clambering up these rocks?
I was sent to call the Duke to dinner, and carried a bell to ring it on the cliff. I was afraid when a stranger's head appeared upon the path.
Yet when I spoke, you stopped.
At the first word I knew I needn't be afraid, and you took my hand to help me up the slope. You asked my name, and told me yours was Joe. Then we came together to this cabin, and each day I have been with you. 2 weeks only.
I shall be gone, Betsy, in a little while.
Gone?
I am not, my dear, the master of myself. We must forget these days together.
Joe!
Maybe I shall return. Fate is captain. The future shows so vaguely in the mist. Listen, it is the Duke.
In the distance, the Duke is heard singing the pirate song.
We must speak of these things together. Another time when there is no interruption.
Gently she touches his fingers.
I shall be lonely when you go.
There is loud stamping at the door. Betsy goes quickly to the kitchen. The captain enters, followed by the Duke. Patch-Eye enters by way of the ladder. The captain has a hook hand. This is the very hook mentioned in my preface, if you read prefaces, got from the corner butcher. The captain would be a frightful man to meet socially. I can hear a host saying, "Shake hands with the captain." One quite loses his taste for dinner parties. There is a sabre cut across the captain's cheek. He is even more disreputable in appearance than his followers, with a bluster that marks his rank.
There's news! There's news, my men! I've brought big news from the village.
He wrings the water from his hat. He is provokingly deliberate. All of the pirates crowd around.
By the bones of me 10 fingers, it's a blithe night for our business. It's wetter than a crocodile's nest. When I smells of fog, I feels good. I tastes it and is happy.
What's your news, Captain?
News? Oh, yes, the news. I've just heard... Oh, blast me, rotten timbers. How can a man talk when he's dry? A cup of grog.
Darlin has slipped into the room in the excitement. Old custom anticipates his desire. She stands at his elbow with the cup, like a dirty Ganymede. The captain drinks slowly.
There's big news, me hearties.
What's your news, Captain? We asks ya.
I'm telling her. It's sweating with curiosity that kills cats.
He yawns and stretches his legs across the hob.
Down in the village, I learnt. I was just taking a drop of rum at the harbour light. It's not as sweet as Darlin's. They skimps their sugar. Yer wants to keep dropping it in as yer stirs it. I thinks they puts in too much water. Water's not much good, except for washing. And washing's not much good.
Now then, Captain, hold hard on your tiller again, wobbling, and get to port.
We're hanging on your lips.
You're needn't to keep shoving me. I kicks up when I'm riled. They say down in the village.
It is now a sneeze that will not dislodge. He has hopes of it for a breathless moment, but it proves to be a dud.
There's Petey.
We're just fidgeting for the news.
The news? Oh, yes. Now you hears it.
He draws the pirates near.
A great merchantman has just sailed from Bristol. The Royal Houri. It's her. With gold for the armies in France. She's a brig of 500 ton. This night, when the tide runs out, she slips away from Bristol Harbour. With this wind, she should be off Clovelly by this time tomorrow night.
Glory to God.
And then Petey will douse his glim, and we'll set up the ship's lantern.
Smash!
Then Petey will light hisself,
And we'll be just as innocent as babies rocking in a crib.
and lay it on the helmsman for being sleepy.
And I've other news. Down in the village, they say, for a fishing sloop brought the word, that His Highness, the Prince of Wales, left London a month ago.
And him not giving me word? I calls that shabby. He was me fag at Eton.
Does you think, Captain, he'll spend a weekend with us riding to the hounds, just telling us the London gossip? How pretty the Duchess is cutting up?
I thought he was sitting in Whitehall, trying on crowns, so as to get one that didn't scratch his ears.
They say he's incognito.
What? Is it something your catches like wollygogs in the stomach?
Ignorance. I'm shamed of you, Patch. Ain't you been to school? Ain't you done lessons on a slate? Ain't you been walloped so standing's been comfortabler? The captain and me soils ourselves talking to you. Incognito is dressed up fancy so as no one can know him.
Like Cinderella at the party.
If you wants Patch to understand you, Captain, you's got to use little words as is still pulling at their bottles.
When words grow big and has got beards, they just don't say nothing to Patch.
This here Prince of Wales is journeying down Plymouth way.
What's that to us? I'm asking you. His Highness cut me when I passed him in Piccadilly. The bloomin' swab. I pulled me hat, standing in the gutter, but he just seemed to smell something.
It weren't roses, I'm telling you.
Silence! They say he has sworn an oath to break up the pirate business on the coast.
And let us starve? It's unfeelin'.
No pickings on the beach?
I'd like to catch him. I'd slit his whitten.
I'd put poison in the pig I feeds him.
I'd nudge him off the cliff, just like he were a sneaking snooper.
Well, there's your news. I'm dry. Darling, some grog.
He crosses to the table and draws the pirates around him.
Here's to the Royal Houri.
And may the helmsman be very sleepy.
And we as innocent as little pirates sucking at their bottles.
The Royal Houri.
While the cups are still aloft, there is a loud banging at the door. An old woman enters, old Meg. We have seen her but a minute since past the windows. Perhaps she is as dirty as Darlin. A sprig of mistletoe, even at the reckless New Year, would wither in despair. She is a gypsy in gorgeous skirt and shawl, and she wears gold earrings. Any well-instructed nursemaid would huddle her children close if she heard her tapping up the street. Meg walks to the table. She sniffs audibly. It is grog, her weakness. She drinks the dregs of all 3 cups. She rubs her thrifty finger inside the rims and licks it for the precious drop. She opens her wallet and takes from it a fortune-teller's crystal.
I tell fortunes, gentlemen. Wouldn't any of you like to see the future? I sees what's coming in this here magic glass. I tells you when to set your nets in of rising storms. Has any of you a kind of hankering for matrimony? I can tell you if the lady be light or dark. It'll cost you only a 6pence.
Yer insults me. For better and for worse is usual for worse. Does yer think you can anchor an old sea dog like me to a kennel as is made for landlubbery lapdogs? I've deserted 3 wives, and that's enough. More's a hog.
He retires to the fireplace in disgust.
Husbands is nuisances, as I was telling the sea captain just before I cut his throat.
Thank you, old lady. I doesn't need you. When the old Duke is willing, he knows a little dear as will come fluttering to his arms.
What can you do for an old sailor man like me? I'd like someone with curlin' locks as can mix grog as good as Darlin's. And I likes roast pig, crackly as Darlin cooks it.
He offers his hand.
I has a little girl in mind, and she's kinder holdin' up. What does you see, dearie? Does you hear any fiddles tunin' for the nuptials? Is there a pretty lady waitin' for a kiss?
I sees the ocean and a ship. I sees inside the cabin of that ship.
Does you see me as the captain of the ship? Just settin' easy, brawlin' orders, just feedin' on plum duff.
I sees you're in irons.
Mother o' goodness, now you done it.
I sees Wappin Wharf. I sees a gibbet. I sees...
Horrors!
I sees you swinging on that gibbet, stretching with your toes, swinging in the wind.
You makes me grog sour on me.
He goes to the rear of the cabin and looks disconsolately over the ocean. Meg, as she looks in the glass,
I sees misfortune for everyone here, except one, tragedy, the gibbet. Go not upon the sea until the moon has turned. Ha! Little glass, has yer more to show? Has yer any comfort? The light fades out. It is dark.
Ain't you giving us more than 6pence worth of misery? Your gloom is slopping over the brim.
Ah! Here's light again at last. There's a red streak across the dial. It drips. It's blood.
Ain't you got any pretty pictures in that glass?
Graveyards are cheerfuller than gibbets.
Peace. I sees a man in a velvet cloak. It's him that swings you to a gibbet. It's him that strangles you till your eyes is popping. That man avoid like a poison snake.
Avoid? By the rotten bones of flint, if I meets that man in a velvet cloak, I hooks out his eye.
Captain, you sweats yourself unnecessary. Here's Red Joe, old dear. Joe's a spry young fella. He looks as if he might be hankering for a wife. Hey, darling.
He's the kind as vampires make their victims.
With a laugh, but unwillingly, Joe holds out his hand. Meg, as she looks in the glass, her face brightens.
I sees a tall building with gold spires. I hears a shout of joy, and I hears stately music, like what you hears in Bartholomew Fair, arter the Lord Mayor has made his speech. I sees a man in a silk cloak. He swaggers to the music. I sees.
She looks long in the glass, and seems to see great and unexpected things. Her eyes are as wide as a child's at a tale of fairies. It is no less a moment, but how different, than when Lady Bluebeard peeped in the forbidden door. Scarcely was Little Red Riding Hood more startled when she touched the strange bristles on her grandmother's chin. But Meg is not frightened. She smiles. She bends intently. She is about to speak. Then she sinks into the chair behind the table.
I sees. Nothing. The glass is blank.
Nothing. Just nothing at all.
Ain't there no blood drippin'?
No gibbets?
Nor sailormen swinging in the wind?
Old Meg is visibly affected by what she has seen. The Duke, with a suspicious glance at Red Joe, moves forward to look over her shoulder at the glass. Slyly she sees him. She pushes the crystal forward, and it breaks upon the stones. Then she rises abruptly. She lifts a portentous finger. She advances to Red Joe.
I sees danger for you, Joe. Who can tell whether it be death? 'Tis beyond my magic. But beware a knife. Go not near the cliff. You will see me again, and in your hour of danger, when you least expect it.
She is about to curtsy, but turns abruptly and leaves the cabin. Darlin, with shaken nerves, runs to bolt the door. There is silence, except for the monotone of rain.
Nice cheerful old lady, I says.
You can pipe the devil up, but she gives me shivers.
For just a minute I thought some old lady had died and left me her money box.
The Duke picks up a fragment of the crystal and puts it to his eye. He examines it at the candle and turns it round and round. He makes nothing of it and shakes his head.
You're condemn me gig that's left. I'm clean upset.
I ain't been so down in the boots since the blessed angels took Flinterell.
Captain, you and Patch's melancholia and funerals. Wiping widows is jollier. Will you let a handed, thirsty, grog-eyed granddaughter of a blinking sea serpent upset your happy dispositions? Stiffen yourself. Keep your nose up, Captain. We has sea enough. We're not thumping on the rocks.
You said it, Duke. I sulk's unnecessary. There's old Petey shining up there. Tomorrow night, if the wind holds, we'll see his staring eye go out, and our lantern shining at t'other winder.
He takes a pirate flag from his boot. He smooths it with affection, then he waves it on his hook.
The crossbones as hung on the masthead of the spittin' devil. Old Flint's wary flag, him as they hanged on a gibbet on Wappin Wharf. It was a murky night like this, with prentices gulping in the lanterns and Jack Ketch unsnarling his cursed ropes. I spits blood to think of it.
I'll die easy when I've revenged his death, and the old clock is ticking peaceful, and Flint's sleeping happy in his rotten coffin.
A drink all round. We'll drink the health o' this here flag. You'll drink with us, darling.
You spoils me, Captain.
Everyone drinks.
And now, we'll drink confusion to the swab that's setting on the English throne.
All drink, except Red Joe. He makes the pretence, but pours his grog out covertly. Our play is nothing if not subtle.
Here's to old Flint.
Here's
Here's
to
to
old
old
Flint.
It is bedtime. They all stretch and yawn. The captain climbs the ladder to the sleeping loft. Patch follows with the candle, warming the captain's seat for speed. The Duke comes next, carrying his one boot, which he has removed before the fire. Darlin kisses her hand to the Duke and retires to the kitchen. We suspect that she curls up inside the sink, with a stew pan for a pillow. Red Joe lingers for a moment and stands gazing at the ocean.
My memory fumbles in the past. I too hear familiar voices, lost for many years. A dark curtain lifts, and in the past I see myself a child. There are strange tunes in the wind tonight. Methinks they sing the name of Margaret.
He climbs the ladder. And now, with an occasional dropping boot, the pirates prepare for bed. Presently we hear the Duke up above, singing, rigorously at first, until drowsiness dulls the tune.
It is said in port by the sailors' sort, as they swig all night at their rum, that a jolly grave is the ocean wave, but a churchyard bell's too lum. I agrees to this, and to give 'em bliss, from Pew I learned the trick. I'll push 'em wide of the vessel's side, and poke 'em down with a stick.
Darlin enters. With a prodigious yawn she sits at the fire. She kicks off her slippers and warms her old red stockings. She comforts herself with grog and spits across the hearth. She sleeps and gently snores. The Duke continues with his song.
Old Flint has a fist and an iron wrist, and he thumped on the nose, it is said, till a victim's gore ran over the floor, and he rolled in the scuppers dead. But Patch, there's a few, I'm tellin' to you, who's nice and they hates a muss. And a plank, I contend, is a tidier end. No sweepin', no scrapin', no fuss. Captain Kidd went afloat, put the crew in a boat, and he shoved 'em off to starve. On a rock in the sea, says he to me. On a rock in the sea, says he to me. On a rock.
The singer's voice fails. Sleep engulfs him. Silence. Then sounds of snoring. The range of Caucasus hath not noisier winds. Let's draw the curtain on the tempest. End of Act 1. Act 2 of Wappin Wharf, a frightful comedy of pirates, by Charles S. Brooks. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 2. It is the same cabin on the following night. There is no thunder and lightning, but it is a dirty night of fog, as wet as a crocodile's nest, and you hear the water dripping from the trees. The Duke evidently has had an answer to his "Now I lay me." The lighthouse, as before, shows vaguely through the mist. In this scene we had wished to have a moon. The Duke will need it presently in his courtship, for marvellously it sharpens a lover's oath. 'Tis a silver spur to a halting wooer. Shrewd merchants, I am told, go so far as to consult the almanac when laying in their store of wedding fits, for a cloudy June throws Cupid off his aim. What cosmetic, what rouge or powder so paints a beauty? If the moon were full twice within the month, scarcely a bachelor would be left. I pray you, Master Carpenter, hang me up a moon. But our plot has put its foot down. Murk, it says, murk and fog are best for our dirty business. We had wished also to place one act of our piece on the deck of a pirate ship rocking in a storm, Such high excitement is your right, for your payment at the door. It required but the stroke of a lazy pencil. But our plot has dealt stubbornly with us. We are still in the pirate's cabin, in the fog. We hear Darlin singing in the kitchen as the curtain rises.
Oh, I am the cook for a pirate band, and food I never spoil. Cabbage and such, it sure ain't much, till I sets it on to boil. And I throws on salt, and I throws on spice, and the Duke, he says to me, "Me darlin', me pet, I'm in your debt," and he sighs contentedly.
There is a rattle of tinware. Patch-Eye sings the next stanza in the loft.
On the strand, it's true, I'm tellin' to you, the dukes and the duchesses dwell, and they dines in state on golden plate, eatin' and drinkin' like L. But I says to you, and it's perfectly true, they stuffs theirselves too much, and a button stew, when you gets it through, is better than peacocks and such.
More tinware in the kitchen, and now Darlin again.
I've cooked in a brig to a dancing jig, which the sea kicks up in a blast, and my stove slid round until I found a rope to make it fast. But I braces me legs, and the Duke he begs for pudding with sweets on the side. Me darlin', it's rough, and I likes your duff. I'll marry you, darlin', me bride.
In her reckless joy at this dim possibility, she overturns the dishpan. During the song, the Duke's legs have appeared on the ladder. He descends, fetching with him a comb and mirror. He brushes his hair. This is unusual, and he finds a knot that is harder than any Gordian knot whatsoever. He smooths and strokes his whiskers. He goes so far as to slap himself for dust. He puts a sprig of flowers, amazing, in the front of his cloak. He practices a smile and gesture. He seems to speak. He claps his hand upon his heart. Ah, my dear sir, we have guessed your secret. The wind as yet blows from the south, but a pirate waits not upon the spring. His lover's oath pops out before the daffodil. I pray you, master carpenter, hang me up a moon. And now the Duke stands before us, the King of Smiles. His is the wooer's posture. He speaks, but not with his usual voice of command. Oberon, as it were, calls Titania to the woodland when stars are torch and candle to the sleeping world.
Betsy, Betsy!
She appears. The Duke wears a silly smile. But did not Bottom in an ass's head win the fairy princess? A moon, sweet sir. And now, suddenly, the magic night dissolves into coarsest day.
Would you like to be the Duchess?
This is abrupt and unusual, but nice customs curtsy to dukes as well as kings.
I'm asking yer, Betsy. Your old Duke is asking yer. I'm loving you. Your old Duke is loving you. I'll do the right thing by you. I'll marry you. There, I've said it. When you're married, you can just sit on a cushion without nothing to do.
Reflectively.
Nothing 'cept cooking and washing and darning. Does you jump at me, Betsy?
I confess myself a mere man, unable to analyze Betsy's emotions. She stands staring at the Duke, as you or I might stare at a hippopotamus in the front hall. I have bitten my pencil to a pulp. The maker's name is quite gone, but I can think of no lines that are adequate. Her first surprise, however, turns to amusement.
Ain't you kinda hankerin' for me? Come to me arms, sweetie, and confess your blushin' love. I'm askin' you. I'm askin' yer to be the Duchess.
But I do not love you, Duke.
In jest, however, The little rascal perches on his knee.
Make yourself comfortable. Your husband's willin'. When I cramps, I shifts you. Kiss me when you wants.
You are an old goose.
Did I hear you? Do you hold off for me to nag you? The old Duke's waitin' to fold you in his loving arms.
I do not love you, Duke.
The captain and Patch-Eye have thrust their heads through the opening above the ladder, and they listen with amusement.
I'm blowed. I'm a better man than Patch, I'm tellin' you. Is it me stump, Betsy? I hasn't a hook hand like the captain. You's got to be linked all round. There's no fun, I says, in bein' hugged by a one-armed man. You'd be lopsided within a week.
It's just that I do not love you, Duke.
You wounds me feelin's. Doesn't I ask you pretty? Should I have waited for a moon and took you walkin'? Then perched with you on the rocks, with the old moon winkin' at you, shovin' you on? The Duke's never been refused before. A number of very particular ladies, after breakfast evening, has just come scamperin'. 'Tain't Patch, is it, Betsy? A pretty little girl wouldn't love a feller as has one eye. It ain't the captain. He ain't no hand with the ladies. You're not tellin' me it's Petey? I wouldn't want you to fall in love with a blinkin' light.
You have lovely whiskers, Duke.
You can pull one for the locket you wears. Are you makin' fun of me?
I wouldn't dare.
Does you mean it, Betsy? Are you relentin'? Are you going to see the happy word as splices us from keel to topsail? You ain't just a cruel siren, are you? Waving me on, hopin' I'll smash myself? Are you winking at me like old Flint's lantern? Me thinking it's love I see shining in your laughing eyes?
Why don't you marry Darlin?
Her with one tooth? You silly. I booze at you. Old ladies with one hoof inside a coffin doesn't make good prides. You'll want someone kinder gay and spry as you can pin flowers to.
She loves you, Duke.
Course she does. So does the old lady as keeps the tap at the harbour light, and one-eyed Pole as mops up the liquor that is spilt. And youngsters, too. A pretty little dear, just a cosy armful, was winking at me yesterday, kinder giving me the snuggle up. I pities 'em. It's their nature, God help 'em, to love me, that the old Duke is particular. He has lovely eyes, Betsy. Blessed little mirrors where I sees Cupid playin'. They shines like the lights of a friendly harbour.
Darlin cooks roast pig that crackles.
I sets me heart on top of me stomach. Ain't you comfortable, sittin' on me knee? Shall I shift you to me stump? Betsy, I calls after we're married, fetch me down me slipper and lay it on the hearth to warm. Your husband's home. And I tosses you me boot, all mud for cleanin', and then you passes the grog, and after the second cup I limbers up and kisses you, and then sets you on me knee. It'll be snug on winter evenin's when the blast is blowin', and when we're married you can kiss me pretty near as often as you please, and I won't deny as I won't like it. The old Duke ain't slingin' the permission round general. Darlin nags me. What are you laughin' at?
You silly old man.
You roils me. Once and for all, will you marry me? I'll not waste the night arguin' with you. I'm not gonna tease you. I've only one knee, and it ain't no bench for giggling girls as pokes fun at their betters. I'll jolt you till your teeth rattles. Is it someone else? Has you got a prior attachment? Red Joe. Is it Red Joe, Betsy? Is he snooping round?
Betsy rises with sobered mood and walks away.
There's something about that young fella I doesn't like. He's a snooper, Betsy. Does you get what I'm talking about? I have offered to make you the Duchess. I'll buy. I'll steal your set of red beads. I'll give you 6pence, without no nagging, every time you goes to town, just to spend reckless. I'll marry you. I'll take you to Minehead and get the pious parson in the town. Would you like Darlin for a bridesmaid, and grog and angel cake? Me just sittin' ready to kiss you every time you passes it? I'm blowed. You're wickeder than old Flint's lantern. It must be Red Joe. Him with the smirk. There's a young fella round here, Betsy, as wants to look out for his wizen.
But Betsy has run in panic to the kitchen.
I doesn't understand him. I'm thinking the girl's a fool. A ninny, I calls her. It's Red Joe. Off a cliff. You said it, darling. Off a cliff.
He removes a sprig of flowers and tosses it into the fire. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. He retires to the rear of the cabin and strokes the parrot's head. He jerks away his hand for fear of being nipped. The ungrateful world has turned against him.
You're a spiteful bird. You're as mean as women. Ninnies, I call them. It must have been the moon. I should have waited for a moon.
He sits on the chest at the rear of the cabin and whittles a little ship. Women are a queer lot. The captain and Patch-Eye have climbed down the ladder. They burst with jest. The captain sits on the chair by the fire, mimicking the posture of the Duke. Patch-Eye perches on his knee.
Darlin loves your Duke.
Course she does. They all does. Youngsters too. Winking and giving me the snuggle up.
Yer has lovely whiskers, Duke.
Yer can pull one, Betsy, for the look at that you wears.
But the Duke ends the burlesque by upsetting the chair. The captain and Patch-Eye, chuckling at their jest, sit to a game of cards. The Duke returns to the chest. Once in a while he lays down the ship, and seems to be thinking. The broken crystal of the fortune-teller lies on the floor. He picks it up and puts it to his eye, as if the future may still show upon its face. He is preoccupied with his disappointment and his bitter thoughts. Darlin, meantime, is heard singing in the kitchen with her dishes.
For griddle cakes I've a nimble wrist, and I tosses 'em high on a spoon. And the Duke and Patch you can hardly match, for their breakfast they stretch till noon. And I heaps the fire, and I greases the iron, and the Duke he kisses me thumb. Me darling, me dear, it's perfectly clear I've lovin' you better than rum.
Patch also sings.
She's cooked for sailors worn down to the bone, till they rolls like the captain's gig. At soup and stew we are never through, but our favorite dish is pig. And she cuts off slabs and passes 'em round, and the Duke he takes her hand. Me darlin', me love, by the gods above, you're a cook for a pirate band.
And now Darlin again.
Me grog is the best it's made o' rum, and I stirs in sugar too, and a hogshead vast will hardly last a merry evening through. And I fills the cups till morning comes, and the Duke he talks like a loon. Me darling, me life, will you be me wife, and elope by the light of the moon?
Let all the tinware crash. Captain, as he throws down his cards.
There, I done you. You're a child at cards, Patch. How ain't it that you never learnt? Didn't you ever play black ace at the rusty anchor down Greenwich way? Crack me up, I've played with old Flint himself, settin' in the little black room, with something wet and warm in now and then, just to keep the stomach cosy. Never stopped till Phoebus's fiery eye looked in the winder.
Poor old Flint. I never sees his clock up there, but I drops a tear.
Your cries as easily as a crocodile, and you're as innocent as cards as a baby, biting at his coral, a cooing little pirate.
It's frettin' does it, Captain.
What's frettin' you?
It's what the old lady said last night. She hung me to her gibbet, just like old Flint. There's a gibbet, Captain, on Wappin Wharf, just around the corner from the Sailor's Rest. Does you remember it, Captain? Ah, it makes your grog belt on yer.
Captain, to tease and frighten Patch.
Aye, there was 2 sailormen hanging there when I comes in a year ago.
Horrors!
Just swinging in the wind and trying to get their toes down comfortable.
He has hooked 2 empty mugs and he rocks them back and forth.
Just reaching with their footies to ease theirselves.
The old lady last night made me a wee bit creepy. Gibbets on Wappin Wharf ain't nothin' ter talk about.
I never see a flock of crows, but I ask their pardon for keeping 'em waiting for their supper. Crows, Patch, is funnier as you are, without neither sauce nor gravy. Just picking happy, soup ter nuts, at your dry old bones. Here's old Patch, they says, waiting in the platter for his hungry guests ter come.
Oh, me stomach's turned keel up.
Patch, you ain't got spunk to be a pirate. You're as soft as Petey's pussycat.
I ain't I? Wasn't it me as nudged the captain of the North Star off his poop when he weren't looking? Him with a pistol in his boot. Didn't I hit Bill the bosun with a marline spike just afore he woke up? Sweet dreams, I says, and I tapped him gentle. I got a lot of spunk. Bill didn't wake up, he didn't. Wasn't it me, Captain, that started that mutiny? Wasn't it me, I'm asking yer?
Still bragging o' that old time. It was more'n 4 years ago. What you done since? Just loading your stomach, just grunting and wallering in the trough, just bragging.
I ain't afraid of nothin', 'cept the gibbet.
For a moment the ugly word sticks in his gullet.
But the old lady kinder got me. You looked down your nose yourself, Captain, asking your pardon.
Struck me, Patch. She was just a wee bit flustered by Red Joe. Did you notice how she sat and looked at the glass, and wouldn't say nothing? Just nothing at all.
And then the old dear's fingers slipped, and the glass was broke.
It looks almost as if she'd done it a purpose.
The Duke has been thinking all of this time, with necessary contortions of the face. It is amazing how these help on a knotty problem.
Course she done it on purpose. It was to stop me looking across her shoulder in the glass.
What does you think she saw?
Was it blood drippin'?
I'll tell you.
But he continues whittling.
Wow, ain't we listening, Duke?
Just strainin' our ears.
I'll tell you. I squinted in the glass myself after it was broke.
What did you see?
There is intense silence. The Duke comes forward to the table. He taps his fingers sagely. He looks mysteriously at his fellow pirates. They put their heads together. The Duke sinks his voice. In such posture and accent was the gunpowder plot hatched out.
Nothing. Just nothing.
The strain is over. They relax.
The Duke, he just seen nothing.
Just nothing at all.
That's what gets me. If the old lady seen nothing, she wouldn't have took to fidgeting, and therefore she seen something. Does you follow? You, Captain? I specs nothing from Patch.
You hurts me feelings, Duke.
Something's wrong. Something's wrong with Red Joe.
Red Joe's a right smart feller, I says.
He can shoot as straight as old flint. Bear myself, Joe's as straight as shot as I've seen in many a year. Patch egging him is just a crooked stick.
Pick on the Duke just once, why doesn't you?
He's off, mates. Red Joe ain't gonna hang on no gibbet. 'Cause why? 'Cause I'm telling you what the old lady seen in the glass.
Once more the Duke draws the pirates around him. He is Guy Fawkes and the wicked Bothwell rolled together.
We're listening, Duke.
Like kittens at a mouse hole.
Captain, it's just strange that Red Joe's ship, nary a stick of her, never come to shore. Does you remember a wreck along here where nothing washed ashore?
You're right, Duke, I never did.
Does you remember one, stupid?
I doesn't remember one this minute, Duke.
Old Flint, he had a pigtail, didn't he? And you've got a pigtail, Captain, hasn't you? And Patch-Eye, he's got what he calls a pigtail.
Spinach, I calls it.
And old Pew, he'd got a pigtail, ain't he? And every blessed man has sailed with him. I'm telling you, Captain.
The sea cook, he didn't have one.
Sea cooks ain't sailormen. They're swabs. Just indoor swabs. Did you ever see a pirate snipped all round like a landlubber, with nary a wisp behind?
You can rot me keel, Duke, I never did.
I agrees with the captain.
Red Joe, he ain't got a pigtail.
No more he ain't.
Wasn't it Noah, Captain, as got his pigtail cut by some designin' woman? Does you think Red Joe's gone and met a schemin' wixen?
I scorns you, ignorance. You think's a Jonah.
Well, I've told you Red Joe ain't got a pigtail. Doesn't you smell anything?
Captain, as he turns his head and sniffs audibly.
I can't say as I sniffs nothing. Leastways nothing particular. I smells a bit of grog, perhaps.
I gets a whiff of garlic from the kitchen.
The two of you never can smell nothing when there's garlic or grog around. I'm asking your pardon, Captain. Does Red Joe talk like a pirate? Sink me, he can't rip an oath. Did you ever know a pirate which couldn't talk fluent?
What's biting you, Duke?
Ain't I telling you?
Ain't we listening?
Just hanging on your tongue.
Captain, you and me and Patch has seen a heap of sights. We knows the ocean. We knows her when she's blue and when she's kicking higher than a gallows tree.
We has been to Virginie.
We has traded slaves at the Barbados.
And doesn't we sit around o' nights and swap the sights we've seen mermaids and sea serpents and such. Did you just once ever hear Red Joe tell what he's seen? You can sink me stern up with all the lights burning if I think that fella's ever been beyond the Isle of Dogs.
What's biting you, Duke?
It's just this. Red Joe ain't no pirate. He's a landlubber.
He says this as you or I might call a man a snake. Captain, and now a great light comes to him. He is proud of his swift perception. He leans across the table to share his secret with Patch.
I seem to get what Duke means. He's hinting, Patch, that Red Joe ain't a pirate.
If he ain't a pirate, what is he? I ask you that.
Duke, as he brings down his fist for emphasis.
He's a bloomin' spy.
A spy?
He gives a long-drawn whistle as the truth breaks on him.
If I thought he was a spy, I'd catch him right here with me dirk. I hate spies worse'n empty bottles.
I'd scrape him with me hook.
I've been thinking, Captain, while you and Patch has been amusing yourselves. Asking your pardon, Captain, but cards rots the mind. Did you ever know a pirate that ain't drunk at the port light on Wappin Wharf?
Not as yet, I never did. I never knowed a pirate as didn't have a double-barreled nose for grog.
Well, when Red Joe comes in, we'll just ask him. And we'll ask him if he ever played black ace at the Rusty Anchor.
It ain't no night to have spies about, with a Royal Houri coming on so pretty.
And just getting ready to smash himself.
That innocent ship will be due in less than half an hour.
If Red Joe is a spy, by the fiery beard of Satan, I'm telling you that dead men tell no tales.
He lifts the terrible hook and claws the air.
Asking your pardon, Captain, being as it was me as smelled him out, won't you let me slip his whizzin'? I does it pretty, without mussing up the cabin. I ain't asking favours often, Captain, and I've particular reasons as touches me heart.
For a moment he is almost sentimental.
Reasons as touches me heart. Red Joe's been snooping.
I loves you, Duke, very much as I won't let you have. And just to show you that I'm all cut up by this here snooping, when I'm dead, I'll will you this old hook of mine as has scraped 100 men.
He honours me, Captain, and if I is shovelled in first, me stump is yourn.
It's handsome of you, Duke, and I'll not be jolly till a year is up, just like a widow.
You touches me. I'll tie a black ribbon on your hook.
At this pathetic moment, Darlin is heard singing in the kitchen.
And I fills the cups till morning comes, and the Duke he talks like a loon. Me darlin', me life, will you be me wife, and elope by the light of the moon?
There is a stamping of boots outside. The pirates put their fingers on their lips. They are innocence itself. The Duke scratches the head of the parrot. The strange bird declines to taste his grog. Patch-Eye shuffles the cards. The captain hooks the mugs toward him one by one for the last drops of their precious liquor. Red Joe enters. Also Darlin from the kitchen.
Hello, mates. Evening, Captain. Aren't you cosy? As peaceful as old ladies with their darning. I've just come from seeing Petey up at the lighthouse. P says that long in about 15 minutes the Royal Harry will be showing around the cliff. Isn't it time, Captain, to set up the lantern where she's useful?
Isn't it? Did you hear that, Captain? Ain't it, is what Red Joe means.
Right you are, Joey. We must be trotting.
What's the name of that tavern, Joe? At Wappin Wharf, where we gets the uncommon grog.
Wappin Wharf? I'm blessed if the name's not gone from me. The grog's nothing to darlings.
What does you call the tavern on the Isle of Dogs?
I remember the rum. What's the use of looking at the signboard?
How does you sight to turn the bar at Guinea?
Sorry, Duke. It was my watch below. I was snoring when we turned.
What happened to your pigtail?
Where does we ship the niggers?
Ain't you got a mermaid on your chest?
The pirates have risen and come forward. Their questions are put faster and with insolence. Dirk and hook are drawn. Joe stands in an easy, careless attitude. He seems ignorant of danger. He has taken a coal from the fire, and slowly, deliberately, with back to the menace, he lights his pipe. Then suddenly he drops it from his teeth. He leaps into action. He draws his knife. 2 knives, one for each hand. He kicks away a chair for room. He drives the pirates across the cabin. The candle, all the mugs upon the table, rattle to the stones. He cries out with bravado.
Who offers me his carcass first? What? Is pirate blood so thin and white?
The pirates stand with knives drawn. It is an awkward moment of social precedence. Patch, safe in the farthest corner.
It's me, Patch, Captain. It's fetched loose. I follers you.
Come, Duke, and take your answer. Have you no stomach for my message? For God, is there no black ram to lead his sheep to the shearing?
Joe's is a dangerous gaiety. His 2 knives glisten in the candlelight.
Scrape him with your hook, Captain. I follers you.
My knife frets. It is thirsty for thick red wine. Who offers me his cask to tap? I'll pledge the king, although it is a dirty vintage. Come, Captain, I'll carve you to a dainty morsel. We'll have fresh meat for the platter. You'll not be known for scared rabbit flesh.
He drives them round the table. Patch takes refuge behind the door. Darlin's red stockings run up the ladder.
You bearded hound.
He's taunting your captain. Hand him the hook. The Duke and me is back a year.
Do you fear to cheat the gibbet on Wappin Wharf? A knife's a sweeter end. Who comes first? I'll help him across the Styx, or sink or swim. Flint waits in hell for 3 whelps to join his crew.
Captain, I'm surprised your good nature. Scrape him one.
Who comes to the barber first? Cowards! I'll ram your pigtails down your throats. I'll wash your dirt in blood.
The Duke proves to be the strategist. He has edged to the rear of the cabin. He circles behind Red Joe. And now in a flash he leaps on him. Joe is buried under the 3 pirates, for Patch's valor returns when Joe is down. Joe is tied with ropes and fastened to an upright at the chimney side. This is the terrible, glorious moment, now that the fight is over, when the actor-manager, as I first read the play, as explained in the preface, you really must read the preface, turned his excited somersault down the carpet.
Did you notice, Captain, how I took him by the throat? He was squirmin' loose when I grabbed him. It was me tripped him.
Captain, I ask you a favour. Can I stick him now? Dead men tell no tales.
Captain, you just make a pet of the Duke. Ain't it my turn? I gets rusty.
Let the Duke do it. He has more reasons than Patch.
Lay off me, hearties. Doesn't you know we're in a hurry? Red Joe's kicking up has wasted a heap of time. The Royal Harry will be showing round the cliff any minute now. Red Joe's safe. He's tied up double. We'll have a merry party afterward, with grog and angel cake. It's business afore pleasure. Here, Duke, take the lantern.
He shakes it.
It's full of ile. Just stir your timber stump, Duke. You gonna follow, Patch? Your foller's better than your leets. Some folks is pussycats.
He's poking fun at you, old Lionheart.
You hurts me feelings.
I'll hurt you in a fatter place, where you sits, if you doesn't step along. You're a lily-livered, maggoty land fish. I curbs me tongue. I scorns you worse than cow's milk. Go along, after I loosens up and tells you what you are.
In about 2 minutes, that blessed eye of Petey will go out. We must set up the lantern before the Royal Houri sticks her nose in sight.
Bye-bye, Joey. See you later, old angel cake. You's just time to say, now I'll lay me.
How's the night, Duke?
Blacker than the Earl of Hell's top boots.
I'll just stick my apron on my head and go along too. It ain't proper for a lady as has me tempting beauty to be left alone with snoopers.
The cabin is empty except for Red Joe. He strains at his cords, but is tied fast. You hear the voices of the pirates singing in the distance.
I agree to this and to give them bliss. From you I learned the trick. I push him wide of the vessel's side, and poke him down with a stick.
As soon as the pirates have left the cabin, Betsy enters. She sees Joe, but passes him in fright. She runs to the window and shields her eyes to see into the darkness.
God help the poor sailorman.
Betsy! Betsy, for the love of God!
Suddenly the lighthouse light vanishes, and almost at once the ship's lantern shows at the window to the left. All sounds are hushed.
The ship's in sight. I see her lights. She has rounded the farther cliff. I see her turning. She heads in from the sea. Her 3 masts are in line. She steers for the lantern. God have mercy. She'll strike in another minute.
She stuffs her ears and runs from the window.
I can't bear to listen. I can't bear to look.
Betsy! Betsy, do you hear? Margaret! Margaret!
At the sound of Margaret, she lifts her head, buried in her arms. She runs toward Joe. Her wits seem dazed.
Quick! Margaret! Margaret, the knife! That knife on the stones! Margaret, cut me loose!
Still dazed, moving as if in a dream, Betsy picks up the knife. She cuts Joe's cords. Joe seizes the gun that leans against the clock. He takes deliberate aim through the window. He fires. The window glass is shattered. The ship's lantern is hit. The light vanishes. He replaces the gun. Betsy stands beside him, looking in his face.
You've hit it. Thank God. The light is shattered.
Then, after a pause,
I seem to remember now. My name is Margaret. I remember...
What do you remember?
A great staircase. A room with shadows from a candle. And when I was afraid, a lady sang to me. And she set the candle so that the fearful giant upon the wall ran off, and I was safe.
What else do you remember?
I remember...
Margaret, do you remember me?
Margaret looks at him, and a new memory is stirred.
Yes, I remember you. Were you not a great tall lad, whose crooked elbow was level with my head? And once we climbed a tower. Or do I recall a dream? You held me so that I might see the waves breaking on the rocks below. Then with level eyes we looked upon the sea, and cried out our discovery of each glistening sail. Are these things real? One morning you mounted horse, and I was held aloft so that you might stoop and kiss me. You rode off with a clatter on the stones. You turned and waved your hat, and now you have come back. You are Hal. We were playmates once.
And by luck and God's help we shall be playmates once again.
He puts his arms around her and kisses her.
Quick, Hal, you must escape. Quick, before the pirates come. Follow the path to the village. You can escape by the Royal Harry.
They are running to the door when there is a sound of voices on the path outside. Joe has just time to put himself in the posture in which the pirates left him. The pirates and Darlin enter in dejection. Betsy runs to the kitchen.
Blast me! The lantern's out!
Rot me, but there was an explosion.
Poof! And there weren't no lantern.
What done it? What done it, I asks ya?
They stand at the window and look toward the ocean.
She's still headed on. Her nose is still pointing towards the cliff.
What's that?
I hears the rattling of chains. She's dropping anchor. She has sniffed the villainy. Her anchor's down. She's saved herself. Blow me, she's saved herself.
You can hang me to a gibbet.
You can rot me bones.
Me heart's gone palpy.
What done it? What done it, I asks ya?
At this point, let us hope that the curtain does not stick. End of Act 2. Act 3 of Wappin Wharf, a frightful comedy of pirates, by Charles S. Brooks. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 3. The scene is the same as before. We have given up all hope of a pirate ship rocking on the sea. Our plot still twists us around its little finger. The curtain rises on the tableau of the second act. Old Petey shows again at the window to the right.
What done it? What done it, I asks ya?
Just when everything was going pretty.
Just when she was about to hit.
Me heart near stopped, I was that excited.
The pirates sit in deep dejection.
The mystery of this business is how the blinkin' lantern went out.
Old Petey done his part.
He doused herself in time.
It was the lantern done it.
When there weren't no light at all, the Royal Harry, she just sniffed villainy and dropped anchor.
I was repeating, smash your devil, kinder hurrying her on.
I was saying, now I lay me, throbbing with excitement.
It wasn't oil. I put oil in the lantern myself. Captain, you seen me put in oil.
I seen yer, and I swished it myself to be sure.
Nothing's been right since that old lady hanged me to her gibbet.
There he was watching.
Pop!
And all of a sudden, quicker'n 7 devils, the bloomin' lantern went all to pieces. It's grog, I says. Snakes is next. It were a comfort to the old captain to know that all yer seen it. I seen a yeller rhinoceros once, running along with purple mice. All alone I seen it, and it kinder sickened me or rum.
Does you think the lantern exploded?
Did you ever hear of a ship's lantern exploding? I ask you, Captain.
Yer talk silly, Patch. That lantern has hung for 20 year on old Flint's ship, swinging easy and contented all round the Horn, and it ain't never exploded once.
Swab's lanterns explode, stupid. Ship's lanterns don't. Captain, I feels as mournful as when Flint's clock didn't tick no more, and we knowed he was took by the blessed angels.
I ain't myself as gay as a cuckoo. Not quite, I ain't.
Ever since that old lady...
Lay off that old lady.
They sit in silence, in dejection. All stare stupidly at the floor. For the moment it seems as if nothing more will be said, and the audience might as well go home. But presently the Duke sees something at the rear of the cabin. He looks as you or I would look if we saw a yellow elephant taking its after-dinner coffee in the sitting-room, but as he is a pirate, he is not frightened, merely interested and intent. He brushes his hand before his eyes to make sure it is no delusion, not grog or rum. Then he rises softly. He crosses to the window. Very gently he touches the glass. He finds it is really broken. He loosens a piece of the shattered glass. The others are sunk in such melancholy that they do not observe him. He gazes through the window, studying the direction of the broken ship's lantern. He traces the angle with his finger. The gesture ends with an accusing finger pointing at Red Joe. He whistles softly. For a moment his eye rests upon the gun, which leans against the clock. He has guessed the riddle. He advances casually, but with dirk in hand. He comes in front of Joe. Suddenly he presses the blade of his dirk against Joe's stomach.
Captain, Captain, quick! Tie him up!
Joe is bound again with rope.
It's him that done it. It's Red Joe.
How did he get loose?
Duke, as he points to the knife on the floor.
Does you see that knife? Does you see, Joe? I'm telling you, it was him shot out the lantern.
Didn't I help ter tie him meself?
Asking your pardon, Captain, but you and Patch has the brains of a baby alligator. A stuffed rhinoceros is poslutely nothing. Asking your pardon for speaking so plain, I does all your thinking for you. There's some folks sitting here as are fat-headed and thinks ships' lanterns explode.
Easy now, old dear. You're allers pitching inter me, 'cause I'm good-natured.
Red Joe, I calls you a dirty spy, a swab, a landlubber. For one copper fartin' I'll catch you one with this hook.
It was me discovered him. I ask you, Captain, to leave Red Joe to me. I hates him most particular.
Betsy enters from the kitchen.
Did you call, Captain?
Nobody ain't calling you, dearie. Now just toddle back into the kitchen.
This ain't no place for a little girl. It'll give you bad dreams. Mince pie's nothing.
Betsy attempts to leave the cabin by the door that leads to the cliffs, the door at the rear of the cabin.
Where are you going, Betsy?
I've an errand in the village.
Well, you ain't going. It ain't no night for a little girl to be out. I ain't gonna have me Duchess snifflin' with a cold. Go to Grandma. It was me discovered him, Captain. I'm asking yer a favour. He's a snooper.
Captain, I gets rusty.
Lay off me, hearties. Duke, Patch, I loves both of you. I loves your equal, like two mugs of grog as is full alike. Yer can pitch dice to see which does it.
He places the dice cup on the table beside the candle. The Duke and Patch take their places. Betsy, under cover of this centered interest, runs to Red Joe, who whispers to her.
I drops 'em in me mug so they can get a smell of rum. The little bones is me friends. I never throws 'em less a 5 spot. I makes a point o' shaking the bones till they rattles jolly. I likes the sound of it even better than the blessed scrapin' of the spoon what's stirrin' grog. Write it on me tombstone, if I rots ashore, he was the kind of feller as never throwed less than a 5 spot.
Go along, Duke. Bones as is kept waitin' sulks.
1 or 3?
1's enough. I'm talking to you, Bones. I want 6s, sweeties.
As he throws, Betsy jostles the candle with her arm. It overturns and falls. The cabin is dark. You can see her run from the cabin and past the windows to the left.
Now you done it.
You was all thumbs, Betsy.
Easy, mates. It were just an accident. Betsy, fetch a sea coal from the hearth. Betsy, we ain't going to wallop you. Where are you, Betsy?
Come out of your hiding.
I'll light this candle myself.
He takes it to the fire, lights it, and returns to the table.
There you are, blazing like old Petey. You're better sit down, Betsy. Crack me stump, where is the girl?
Kinder silly of her to run away. We ain't never walloped her.
Women's silly folks. I calls 'em ninnies. It don't do no good trying to understand 'em. Now then, old lion heart, are you ready?
He throws.
2 5s. I've done ya, Patch.
It is Patch's turn. He kisses the cubes.
You're sweet as honey. Tell me you loves me. Me Dirk is itchin' for your answer. Luck's a lady as dotes on me.
He throws.
A pair of 6s. Does you see it, Duke? Stick your blinking eye right down again the table. It's me, Captain.
He rises and draws his knife.
Joey, are you ready?
God, if I were loose, I'd take you by the dirty gullet and twist it until you roared. I'd kick you off my path like a snarling cur. What filth does nature sometimes compound a man? Shall a skunk walk 2-legged to infect the air? 3 cowards will hang on Wappin Wharf before the month is up.
Aren't meaning us, are you, Joey?
And I'll tell you more.
Ain't we listening to you? You can talk spry. As Patch here has a leet old job to do, and it's nearing bedtime.
We doesn't want to sit up late and lose our beauty sleep just listening to a speech.
A pirate takes his chance of death. You guard your dirty skins by wrecking ships upon the rocks. You dare not pay yourselves against a breathing victim. Like carrion crows you sit to a vile and bloated banquet.
Tip me a wink, Captain, when you has heard enough.
Stand off, you whelp. The King of England fights in France.
Ain't you ashamed he is not there to help?
I'll tell you why I'm not in France. I swore to His Majesty that I would clear his coast of pirates. My plans are made. The channel is swept by gunboats. They will close in on you tomorrow. You and all the dirty vermin that befoul these cliffs.
He talks so big, you'd think he was the king himself.
Everyone laughs at this. The Duke takes the cloak from the chest. In derision, he hangs it across Red Joe's shoulders.
We'll play charades. Here's your costume, Joey. There, it fits you like the skin of a snake. We makes you king. You looks like you was parading in St. James's Park, lamping at Duchess.
Does your Majesty need a new Chancellor? I ask you for it. I wants a fine house in London town, running to the Strand, and peacock strutting in the garden.
King, I asks you to cast your gig on me. I'd be a right smart Archbishop of Canterbury. Me whiskers is ecclesiastical.
I offers meself king as Lord High Admiral of the Navy. I swears fluent.
Has your princess vacant? I looked graceful on the throne.
The horrid creature spits.
Vast there, my hearties. I'm thinking I'm hearing the sound of footsteps.
Duke to Patch.
Did your lordship hear any sound?
Asking your Griss's pardon, I didn't catch a thing. Did you hear anything, Princess?
There's nothing come to me, pearly ears.
Silence! I wants to listen.
No sound is heard.
Well, Patch, you'd better get your dirk ready. I'm uncommon sleepy. I wants to get to bed.
Catch him a deep one, Patch.
I takes it mighty kind of you, Captain. Yours allers been a lovin' father to me, Joey. I'll tell you what you are. You're the kind of feller I hates most particular. You're a spy. Say your prayers, you hissin' snake."
He sharpens his dirk and gaily tests it on his whiskers.
"My wasted day is done. In the tempest rack, the stars are dim, and face the only compass. Now or hereafter, what matters it? The sun will gild the meadows as of yesteryear. The moon will feed the world with silver coin. And all across the earth men will traffic on their little errands until nature calls them home. I am a stone cast in a windy pool, where scarce a ripple shows. Life's but a candle in the wind. Mine will not burn to socket."
He's all wound up like a clock, just ticking words.
Patch, Joe is telling us where to go that his wick is burned right down to the bottle. You had better put it out, without more hesitating.
And now as they are intent for the coming blow, suddenly, quietly, a woman's hand and arm, a claw rather, with long, thin, shriveled fingers, have come in sight at the window with the broken glass. It quite terrifies me as I write. My pencil shakes. Old ladies will want to scream. The fingers grope along the sill. They fumble on the wall. They stretch to reach the gun which stands beside the clock. Another inch and they will grasp it, and Red Joe will be saved. The arm rubs against the pendulum of the clock. It swings, and the clock starts to tick. And still no one has seen the terrible hand. And now the fingers are thrust blindly against the gun. It falls with a clatter on the stones. The hand and arm disappear. But Darlin has seen the swinging pendulum and shrieks.
"Does you see it, Captain?
"Horrors!"
It's never went since Flint was hanged."
And wouldn't run till his dad's revenged and him laying peaceful in his coffin.
"Does yer think it's grog? Does all o' yer see it?"
What done it?
From the distance is heard a long-drawn whistle.
What's that?
It makes me jumpy.
It ain't a night when folks whistles just for cows and such. Finish your job, Patch.
Are you feared of something special, Duke?
Feared? If we ain't quick, there'll be a gibbet for all of us.
Ain't the clock ticking peaceful?
She ain't got no right ter tick. It's like a dead man talkin'.
Quick, give me the knife. I'll stick it in him, and when I've done, we scatters. There's trouble brewin'. Tomorrow night, when the tide is out, we meets at the Hollow Cave, and may the devil lend a helpin' hand. Snooper, are you ready? Does you see this here blade shinin' in the candle? In about 1 minute, I'll be wipin' off a streak of red round me breeks. Flint, blessin' your gentle soul, you can rest in peace.
He approaches Joe with upraised knife. Suddenly he cries out.
It's him, the fortune-teller mentioned. It's the man in a velvet cloak.
It's him! Me God! Me hook!
With a growl of rage the pirates leap forward toward Joe, but are arrested by the sound of running feet. Into the cabin rushes the sailor captain, followed by 3 sailors. The sailor captain cries, "Vast there!" and the pirates turn to face his men. They put up a fight worthy of old Flint. Darlin, to escape the rough and tumble, runs halfway up the ladder. The table is overturned. The stools are kicked across the room. Even the precious grog is spilled. But the pirates' valor is insufficient. They are overpowered at last and tied. Red Joe's cords are cut. Into the cabin Betsy comes running, followed by old Meg.
Joe! Hal! Thank God you are safe.
Margaret!
I am the captain of the Royal Harry.
Captain, I charge you to arrest these men.
Yes, your Royal Highness.
Royal Highness? Did you hear what he said?
Highness nothing. He's just a snooper.
She sits on the floor with her head on the Duke's knee. She is staunch to the last, a true cook for a pirate's band.
You will transport them in chains to London to wait their sentence by a court of law.
Yes, your majesty.
You mistake me, Captain. My father is the King of England. I am but the Prince of Wales.
Alas, sir, we bring you heavy news. Your royal father, the King of England, has been killed fighting gloriously on the soil of France.
Bear with me. My grief has leaped the channel. My thought is a silent mourner on my father's grave. Shall a king sink to the measure of a mound of turf for the tread of a peasant's foot? Where is now the ermine robe, the glistening crown, the harness of a fighting hour, the sceptre that marked the giddy office, the voice, the flashing eye that stirred to cower to bravery, the iron gauntlet shaking in the pallid face of France? All covered by a spadeful of country earth. Captain, has Calais fallen to our army's siege? Are the French lilies plucked for England's boutonniere?
Calais has fallen.
Then God be praised even in this hard hour. By heaven's help I throw off the idle practice of my youth. The empty tricks and trivial habits of the careless years, I renounce them all. A wind has scoured the sullen clouds of youth. My past has been a ragged garment, stained with heedless hours. Tonight I cast it off, like a coat that is out at elbow. My father henceforth lives in me.
Meg, at her entrance, has sniffed the wasted grog. Her nose, surer than a hazel wand, inclines above the hearth. She bends to the lovely puddle. She employs and tastes her dripping finger, covertly, with mannerly regard to the prince's rhetoric, sucking in secret his good health and happy returns, so to speak. The liquor warms her tongue, not to drunkenness, but to ease and comfort. The hearthstone is her tavern chair. Meg, not boisterously, with just a flip of her trickling finger, as if it were a foaming cup.
Hooray! I wants to be the first, Your Majesty, to swear allegiance to your throne. I saw your future in the glass. Old Meg knowed you, like she had rocked you in the cradle. I told her I would come in your hour of danger. It was me reached through the window for the gun to save you. It was me whistled at your heart, dearie, hurrying up the sailormen as Betsy went to fetch.
Thanks, my good woman. We grant you a pension for your love.
She quests back to her pool of grog. She finds a spoon. She sits to the delicious salvage, with back against the chimney and woolen legs outstretched. Speeches to her are nothing now. We cannot expect her help in winding up our play. The burden falls on Joe. We must be patient through a sentimental page or two.
My velvet cloak, which I left at Castle Crag when I laid aside the prince and took disguise. These unintentioned ruffians by their dirty jest have clothed me to my office.
I swear my allegiance, your majesty.
I rely on my sailors to clear the coast and seas. But first I want your allegiance in another high concern. Some 14 years ago, when I was a lad of 10, I journeyed with my royal father to the castle of the Duke of Cornwall, which stands high on the windswept coast. Its giddy towers rise sheer above the ocean till the very rooks nesting in the battlements grow dizzy at the height. It is the outer bastion of the world, laughing to scorn the ocean's siege. In that castle, Captain, there lived a little girl, and she and I romped the sounding corridors together. At once I led her to an open brazier in the steep-pitched wall, and held her so that she might see the waves curling on the rocks below. And tales of mermaids I invented, and shipwreck and treasure buried in the noisy caverns of the rock, where twice a day the greedy tide goes in and out to seek its fortune. And far afield we wandered, and stood waist-deep in the golden meadows, until the weary twilight called us home. And I remember, when tired with play, that her mother sang to us an old song, a lullaby. Her voice was soft, with a gentleness that only a mother knows who sits with drowsy children. And to that little girl I was betrothed. I was sworn with oath and signature that some day I would marry her, and that when I became King of England in the revolving years, she would be its queen.
By what miracle did you know me, Hal?
It was the song you sang. Your voice was the miracle that told the secret. With unvarnished speech I woo you. I love you, Margaret, and I ask you to be my wife.
Meg, faintly, floating in a golden sea of grog.
Hooray!
Joe takes Betsy in his arms and kisses her.
The magic of your lips, my dear, is the miracle that answers me. My loyal sailors, I present you. Margaret, Duchess of Cornwall, Countess of Devon, Princess of the Western Marches, by right and title possessor of all land twixt Exeter and Land's End. And now, by her consent and the grace of God, the wife of Harry, King of England.
Little Betsy, I forgives you.
I ask your health, though I swings tomorrow.
And may you live long and happy.
We're loving you, Betsy.
My gracious lord, for these 3 years this cabin has been my home. These are my friends, the only friends I have ever known. They fed me when I had no food, and they kept me warm against the cold. Must they hang? I ask you to pardon them.
Glory to God.
The pardon is granted. Captain, strike off their irons.
We loves you, Betsy.
We are fonder of you than grog and singing angels.
I thanks you, King.
It were just an hour ago, sitting in that chair, I asked to splice you, Betsy, keel to topsail. The old Duke never thought the Countess of all them places, and the Queen of England to boot, would ever be sitting on his knee, pulling at his whiskers, him asking her to name the happy day.
It was a prior attachment, Duke.
We'll serve you, King, like we served old Flint.
Top and bottom, fore and aft.
We'll brag how the King of England and us has drunk grog together, and how the Queen washed up the mugs.
Hooray!
And now, Captain, lead the way. We must speed to London.
Goodbye, Duke. Some day you will find a girl who cooks roast pig that crackles.
A blessing, Betsy, on your laughing eyes.
A health to King Hal and his blushing bride.
King Hal, little Betsy.
With a wave of the hand, Joe departs, and with him Betsy, who kisses her fingers to the pirates in farewell. The sailors follow. The pirates and Darlin are left. The pirates sit at the table. They exchange glances of satisfaction. They unbutton for a quiet evening at home. Kings are but an episode in a pirate's life. They return to the happy routine of their lives. Our adventure has circled to its start.
Darlin, me friend the Duke is thirsty. You had better mix another pot of grog. You doesn't want to be a foolish virgin and get catched without no grog.
Darlin, at the fire.
You coddles your stomach, Patch.
The Duke, he knows a leetle dear as is just waiting to come fluttering to his loving arms. I think it's your whiskers, Duke.
You can pull one, Betsy, for the locket that you wears. We is laughing at you, old walrus.
Kings is bigger than dukes. I looses with no kicking up. There's no one like Darlin for mixing grog.
For that kind word, I'm loving you.
She fills the cups.
It's grog beats off the melancholy. As soon as me pipes go dry, I gets homesick for the ocean. Here we be, Duke, thrown up at the last to rot like driftwood on the shore. It was 'appy days when we sailed with old Flint on the Spanish Main.
Happy days, Patch.
Happy days.
They lift their cups in memory of a golden past. It is a contented family around the evening candle. They are as cozy as old ladies with their darning. Meg snores in peace as the curtain falls. Our candles have burned to socket. Our pasteboard cabin is bare and dark. No longer do pirate flags flaunt the ghostly seas. The stormy ocean, the dizzy cliffs of Devon, melt like an unsubstantial pageant. Let's put away our toys, the timber leg, the patch, the frightful hook. Once again, despite the weary signpost of the years, we have run on the laughing avenues of childhood. End of Act 3. End of Wappin Wharf, a frightful comedy of pirates by Charles S. Brooks.